Snow lashed against the narrow windows of Bethlem Royal Hospital's Christmas ward, turning the world outside into a swirling white void. Sherlock Holmes stood motionless in the shadowed corridor, his gaunt frame silhouetted by the flickering gas lamps, hawk-like nose casting a sharp shadow on the peeling wall. The air hung heavy with the stench of carbolic soap, unwashed bodies, and something sweeter, mulled wine from the attendants' illicit holiday cheer. But it was the singing that clawed at him. 47 voices, ragged and insistent, rising in endless waves of "God rest ye merry gentlemen." No pauses for breath, no faltering into silence as exhaustion should demand. They had been at it for 12 hours straight, since the blizzard sealed the doors at dusk on Christmas Eve, 1890. Holmes's gloved fingers tightened around his cane, the cocaine haze in his veins sharpening his senses to a painful edge. He shouldn't be here, not like this, not chasing whispers of madness in London's most notorious asylum, when his own mind teetered on the brink. Moriarty's shadow still lingered from the Reichenbach nightmare he'd barely survived, a void that no 7% solution could fill. Rationality was his fortress, yet lately cracks spiderwebbed through it. Dreams of falling, endless plummets into abyss. Tonight, Inspector Lestrade's urgent telegram had dragged him from Baker Street, patients frozen in song, refusing food, water, sleep. Superstition, Holmes had scoffed initially. Mass hysteria from tainted Christmas pudding. But Watson's steady hand on his shoulder at the door had betrayed worry, for the case or for him. He pushed open the heavy oak door to the ward, the hinges groaning like a soul in torment. The room assaulted him. Straw-strewn floors slick with meltwater, iron bedsteads crammed in rows like forgotten tombs. Patients in threadbare nightshirts rocked in unison, eyes glassy, mouths moving ceaselessly. Tidings of comfort and joy, comfort and joy. The tune warped, harmonious yet hollow, echoing off the vaulted ceiling painted with faded angels. In the center, Elias Blackwood, the wild-haired former music hall performer committed for melancholia, led them from his restraint chair. His voice boomed clearest, charismatic even in chains, beard flecked with spittle. Holmes scanned the room methodically, pulse rates elevated but steady, no signs of fever or poison. Yet their fervor unnerved him, a synchronized trance defying physiology. He knelt beside a frail woman, her lips cracked and bleeding, whispering the carol through chapped flesh. "When has it ever stopped?" he murmured. But she only sang louder, eyes fixed on some invisible light. Footsteps echoed behind him, sturdy, familiar. Dr. John Watson entered, moustache rimed with frost, greatcoat shedding snow. His loyal eyes, creased with Afghan scars, flicked from Holmes to the singers. "Good God, Holmes, it's worse than Lestrade described. They've not ceased since the clock struck 6. Holmes rose, dusting his knees. "Mass delusion, Watson. The blizzard isolates them, stirs dormant religious fervor. Bedlam's history of hysterics provides ample precedent." But his voice lacked conviction, the cocaine amplifying a whisper of doubt. Faith, the word slithered unbidden. He despised it, crutch for the weak-minded, yet here, in this den of broken souls, it pulsed like a heartbeat. A shadow detached from the wall, Dr. Elias Crowe, superintendent, corpulent frame straining his waistcoat, mutton chops quivering. "Mr. Holmes, a pleasure amid calamity. These unfortunates, their mania coincides with the storm. Perhaps divine mischief?" His shifty eyes darted to the window where wind battered the bars. "Divine or otherwise, Doctor, physiology doesn't bend to weather. Have you isolated the instigator?" Holmes's gaze pierced, probing for lies. Crowe shifted, sweat beading despite the chill. Blackwood there, always the ringleader, but tonight, unnatural persistence. From the far corner, a softer voice cut through. Nurse Amelia Thorne, pale and severe, auburn hair pinned like a crown of thorns. Mid-30s, orphaned from the workhouse. She moved among the patients with fierce tenderness, adjusting blankets. "It's no mania, sir. They speak of a light, a promise kept." Her eyes met Holmes's, holding secrets, a flicker of something personal. Love, perhaps, for one of these lost souls. Holmes ignored the pull, focusing on Blackwood. He approached, the singing swelling around him like a tide. Up close, the man's wild hair framed a face etched with old revenges, eyes burning with forbidden knowledge. "Mr. Blackwood, why the endless carol? What truth do you proclaim?" Blackwood's lips curled, voice weaving into the melody. "Truth. The veil thins tonight, detective. Angels walk the storm. We've seen what you deny." His laugh cracked into song, pulling others tighter into rhythm. A chill unrelated to the draft gripped Holmes. He retreated to Watson, mind racing through deductions. No drugs in the dispensary logs, water untainted, food meager. Hypnosis, collective trance from Blackwood's performer charisma. Yet the unity was too perfect, voices blending across ages and ailments. Watson leaned close, voice low. "Holmes, you're pale. This place. It preys on the mind. Perhaps we leave it to Lestrade." "No." Holmes's jaw set. Vulnerability was anathema. But as thunder rattled the panes, the singing shifted. Now, "O come all ye faithful," joyful yet laced with desperation. One patient slumped, eyes rolling back, yet his mouth twitched on. "Dead?" "No." Chest rose faintly. Crowe bustled over, Lestrade trailing, wiry, cynical, ferret-faced. "Scotland Yard's finest," Holmes noted dryly. Lestrade scowled. "Superstitious rot. But families complain. Christmas visits ruined. Solve it quick, Holmes, or it's scandal." As they conferred, Nurse Thorne slipped Holmes a crumpled note. "Meet me in the chapel at midnight. Secrets of the song. A.T." His pulse quickened. Not from drugs, but intrigue laced with unease. Rationality frayed at edges. What if Blackwood spoke truth? What light pierced Bedlam's gloom? Hours blurred. Holmes paced the corridor, Watson dozing in a chair. Midnight neared, blizzard howling like damned souls. He slipped toward the chapel, a forgotten nook off the sanctuary wing, its stained glass cracked, depicting Bethlehem's star amid Victorian grime. Thorne waited in shadows, candlelight gilding her severe features. "They sing of redemption, Mr. Holmes, Blackwood." He was there when it started. Last year, same night. A patient vanished, claiming visions. Now this. "Details," Holmes demanded, inner walls cracking further. His own abyss yawned, nights alone, violin weeping unanswered questions. Was this puzzle his mirror? She hesitated, voice raw. Crowe's experiments, hypnotic sermons, electric therapies. But the patients say grace, not madness. Listen. From the ward the song swelled. Hark the herald angels sing. Holmes froze. Among the voices, a new timbre, his own mother's hymn from childhood Christmases, long buried, impossible, hallucination. Thorne's hand brushed his. "No one beyond it, sir. Even you." He pulled away, storm raging within. As the clock struck 12, a scream pierced the carols, not fear but ecstasy. Blackwood's voice roared, "The light comes!" Holmes whirled toward the ward. The door burst open, snow invading. In the center, patients knelt, faces wrapped toward the ceiling, where gaslight fractured into prisms. And there, impossibly, a glow bloomed, not lamp, not lightning. What madness or miracle had breached Bedlam's walls? This story is created by a young creator whose dream is to reach 1,000 subscribers. If you enjoy these tales, subscribing helps more than you know, and he thanks you for it. Mysteries that challenge your mind and reward attention await in the chapters ahead. Holmes lunged through the chapel door, the frigid gale whipping snowflakes into his face like needles forged in some infernal smithy. The ward beyond sprawled under the fractured gaslight, a cavern of iron bedsteads and shadowed alcoves, where 47 souls, pale wraiths in threadbare nightshirts, knelt in rapt unison. Their voices rose not in chaos, but harmony, the ancient carols weaving through the storm's howl as if defying the very grip of winter's despair. In the heart of it stood Elias Blackwood, his wild mane of hair haloed by that unnatural glow. It pulsed from the ceiling's cracked plaster, not flame or lantern, but a soft radiance that painted faces in gold and sorrow. Blackwood's eyes, fever bright, locked onto Holmes. The singing peaked, then hushed to a murmur, leaving only the crackle of the hearth and the distant moan of wind through barred windows. Watson stirred from his chair near the sanctuary wing's threshold, rubbing sleep from his eyes, his moustache twitching in confusion. He stumbled forward, greatcoat half on, voice thick with alarm. "Elias, what devilry is this? The light, it's fading." Holmes ignored him, striding into the ward's chill embrace. The air hung heavy with the tang of carbolic soap, unwashed flesh, and something sweeter. Beeswax candles. No, impossible. The patients had none. His hawk-nosed profile cut sharp against the dying glow as he scanned the room. No hidden projectors, no phosphorescent tricks. Rationality clawed for purchase amid the rising tide of doubt. Blackwood lowered his arms, the charismatic gleam in his 40-something features undimmed by chains or confinement. "Mr. Holmes, you've come to the light at last. The song calls even the coldest hearts." "Superstition," Holmes snapped, though his voice lacked its usual steel. His mind raced. Hypnosis, mass delusion induced by Crowe's therapies. Yet the warmth lingered on his skin, a phantom touch evoking Christmases long entombed, his mother's voice by the fire, fragile faith shattered by a father's early grave and the world's cruelties. He shook it off, pulse hammering not from cocaine's ghost, but a deeper fracture. Nurse Amelia Thorne materialized at his elbow, her auburn hair escaping its pins, pale cheeks flushed. "It happens every Christmas Eve, sir. Last year they sang till dawn, and poor Mr. Hargrove." He vanished into that light. "Claimed it was grace come calling." "Vanished?" Watson echoed, buttoning his coat against the invading snow. "Bollocks to miracles. Lestrade will have my hide if we don't report this." Holmes held up a hand, silencing them. "Blackwood, speak plainly. What sorcery binds you all?" "Your melancholia was theatre lights and gin, not divine choirs." The former music hall performer chuckled, a rich baritone that echoed off stone walls. "Sorcery? No, detective. Truth. Crowe locked me here after I saw too much, his electric sermons frying souls for science. But the song. It started with Hargrove. He begged forgiveness on his knees, and the light answered. 47 now, all waiting. Even you, Holmes, with your empty nights and violin laments. Grace doesn't ask permission. Holmes's gaunt frame tensed, Inverness cape swirling as he circled the man. The glow had ebbed to embers, leaving patients slumped in exhausted peace, some weeping softly, others smiling into vacancy. One ancient woman clutched a rosary of knotted string, murmuring of prodigal sons returned. Inner walls, so meticulously bricked, began to crumble. Hadn't he chased shadows in Whitechapel, only to find voids within? Thorne leaned closer, her severe features softening in the hearth's flicker. "Dr. Crowe forbids talk of it, says it's hysteria from the blizzard. But I saw Hargrove's cell empty, door bolted from inside. No footprints in the snow below the window. A footfall echoed, heavy, deliberate. Dr. Elias Crowe burst from his office corridor, corpulent form straining against waistcoat buttons, mutton chops quivering with fury. What fresh outrage! Patients abed, nurse, and you, Holmes, meddling beyond your warrant." The superintendent's shifty eyes darted to the ceiling, then away. Holmes noted the tremor in his jowls, the scent of laudanum on his breath. "Experiments, you called them. Enlighten me, doctor. Hypnotic sermons. Electricity to summon angels." Crowe's laugh boomed false, echoing like thunder in a tomb. "Hallucinations, sir. The mad mind conjures comforts in crisis. This blizzard stirs old follies. Carols from street singers seep through walls. Blackwood's the ringleader, whipping them into frenzy." Blackwood grinned, unbowed. "Ask your machines, doctor. They can't measure the soul's hunger." Watson stepped between them, sturdy frame a bulwark. "Steady on, Crowe. We've witnesses to lights and vanishings. Scotland Yard's involved now." Crowe blustered, but Holmes pressed, voice low and lethal. "The note, doctor. Midnight Chapel. Thorne knows your secrets." Her face paled, but she held firm protective fire in her gaze. "For the patients, sir, not your glory." The doctor deflated slightly, gesturing to attendants who herded patients back to beds. "Enough. Inspect if you must, but dawn brings Lestrade and inquiries I cannot shield you from." As the ward quieted, Holmes retreated to the sanctuary wing's antechamber, a dim parlour off the chapel with threadbare pews and a crucifix scarred by time. Watson poured brandy from a flask, handing a glass over. "You're rattled, old chap. Never seen you chase ghosts before." Holmes stared into the amber liquid, the room's chill seeping through cracks. "Not ghosts, John. Something that defies cataloguing." Blackwood's eyes. They saw me. Truly saw. My isolation, the cases that hollowed me. What if this light is no delusion? Watson clapped his shoulder, loyal eyes crinkling. "Then we chase it together. Faith or fraud, we'll unravel it." But doubt gnawed deeper as snow piled against leaded panes. Holmes recalled Baker Street's warmth, now distant as childhood prayers. Thorne slipped in quietly, pressing a worn journal into his hand, Hargrove's scribblings. "Read it, sir, before Crowe burns the rest." He opened it under candlelight, pages filled with frantic script. The song redeems the broken. 47 will ascend come midnight mass, no one left behind. A chill unrelated to weather gripped him. Pages fluttered to Hargrove's last words, even the great detective if he listens. Midnight mass? The chapel bell tolled one. Thorne whispered of a hidden crypt beneath, where Crowe conducted rites. But as Holmes rose, a new song stirred from the depths, not carols, but a lament, raw and personal, mirroring his unspoken grief. Blackwood's voice carried up, "Come, ye weary." Had the madman breached his mind? Or was Grace, that elusive phantom, slipping through Bedlam's bars? Watson frowned at the journal. "Holmes, this speaks of ascension, like they're leaving us." Holmes snapped it shut, resolve hardening even as vulnerability flickered. "Then we descend first, to the crypt." They moved through shadowed corridors, Thorne leading with a stolen key, the blizzard's fury muffled by thick walls. The air grew dank, laced with ozone and incense. Stone stairs spiraled down, torches sputtering in iron sconces. Holmes's mind whirled. Chemical vapors? Hidden vents? At the crypt's iron gate, Thorne hesitated, her orphan's steel yielding to fear. Crowe's laboratory. Patients strapped, currents surging while he preaches progress. Holmes picked the lock with practiced ease, the click echoing like judgment. Inside, machinery loomed, coils humming faintly, chairs with leather restraints stained dark. On a table, a phonograph cylinder labeled Sermon 1224, 1889, Hargrove Session. He wound it, needle scratching to life. Crowe's voice boomed, "Repent, and the light shall free you." Then overlaid patient voices singing, swelling to crescendo. A pop, silence, then Hargrove's gasp, "It's here!" Holmes yanked the needle, the glow. Had Crowe captured it? Or conjured? Thorne pointed to a grate, whispers from above. The patients. They're watching. Peering up, Holmes saw slits to the ward. Eyes gleamed down, 47 pairs, serene, expectant. Blackwood's face pressed close. "Join us, Holmes. Your mind's cage is heaviest." Heart pounding, Holmes recoiled. Rationality screamed fraud, but the pull. Undeniable. What if the song held keys to his own redemption? As they ascended, a shadow detached. Inspector Lestrade, wiry frame silhouetted, cigarette glowing. "Gentlemen, word of lights and songs. Care to explain before I shut this madhouse?" The vice tightened. Dawn crept, grey and merciless. But beneath the song persisted, promising truths that could shatter worlds or save one soul. Lestrade's cigarette dangled from thin lips, its ember flaring like an accusatory eye in the dim corridor. His wiry frame blocked the stairwell, rain-slicked coat dripping onto the flagstones, mingling with the crypt's musty damp. Holmes straightened, his hawkish features composing into that familiar mask of unflappable logic, though his pulse betrayed him, hammering against the rational cage of his chest. "Inspector," Holmes said evenly, "ever the guardian of the irrational, your timing is impeccable. As always." Lestrade's cynical eyes narrowed, flicking from Holmes to Watson, then to Thorne, whose pale face drained further under scrutiny. Lights in the madhouse, voices that won't hush, And now you lot skulking from the bowels like grave robbers. Scotland Yard's got reports. Patients raving of ascension, wardens fleeing into the snow. Explain yourselves before I haul the lot for conspiracy." Watson stepped forward. His sturdy surgeons build a bulwark of calm amid the rising storm. "Inspector, it's no conspiracy. We've witnessed anomalies. 47 patients silent for weeks, now singing carols without cease. And in the crypt, anomalies," Lestrade spat, grinding the cigarette under his heel. "Bedlam's full of anomalies, Doctor. Crowe swears it's mass hysteria from the blizzard fever, but the yard smells scandal. Bodies missing from records, whispers of experiments. If Holmes is here, it's no fever." Thorne's hands twisted in her apron, the stolen key burning in her pocket like sin. "The patients aren't harming anyone, sir. They're at peace." Hargrove, the preacher, started it on Christmas Eve. His voice rose above the storm, calling them to the light. Since then the singing hasn't stopped, serene, unending. Lestrade snorted, but doubt shadowed his career-hardened gaze. Peace, with eyes like ghosts peering through grates. "I've seen opium dens quieter. Crowe sent for me at dawn, claims intruders tampering with his work. Points straight at you three." Holmes's mind raced, piecing fragments. The phonograph's ghostly chorus, Blackwood's taunting invitation, the ozone tang hinting at electrical trickery. Crowe, ambitious to the point of madness, peddling electrotherapy as salvation. Yet the pull of those voices clawed deeper, stirring voids in his own soul, cases solved, but voids unfilled, the cocaine vials whisper ever nearer in his Inverness pockets. "Lead us to Crowe," Holmes commanded, voice brooking no delay. "The truth resides not in accusations but evidence." They ascended, the stone steps slick underfoot. Blizzard winds infiltrating cracks with icy fingers. Bethlem's upper hall stirred awake. Distant moans from chained souls, the clang of iron breakfast trays, gas lamps flickering like hesitant prayers. Thorne glanced back, her auburn hair escaping its pins, orphan steel cracking under the weight of secrets too long borne. Crowe's office loomed at corridor's end, mahogany door ajar, fire roaring within. The superintendent paced, corpulent form straining waistcoat buttons, mutton chops quivering with indignation, his shifty eyes locked on Holmes, then widened at Lestrade. "Inspector! Thank God! These interlopers—" "Save it, Crowe," Lestrade growled. "Holmes wants answers. Patients singing eternal carols, lights in the crypt, your phonograph sermons. What's the game?" Crowe blustered, sinking into his leather chair. The room's opulence, a Persian rug, shelves of leather-bound tomes on hysteria and divine madness, clashing with the asylum's despair. No game, gentlemen. A breakthrough. Hargrove, that melancholic preacher, seized during the blizzard. I administered mild galvanic therapy to quell his delusions. Instead, epiphany. He preached repentance, and the ward followed. Their song is catharsis, voices unified in redemption, progress, not peril. Holmes leaned close, inhaling the man's sweat-tinged cologne, scanning the desk, scattered notes on luminous emanations, a half-burned candle stub etched with Hebrew script. "Your recordings capture more than voices. Gasps, pops, like souls departing, and the eyes watching from slits. Coincidence?" Crowe's facade slipped, a flicker of guilt beneath ambition. "The light is metaphorical, Mr. Holmes. Electricity mimics the divine spark. Patients feel Grace's touch, their madness lifts. No harm. Observe." He rose, gesturing them to the window overlooking the Christmas ward. Snow-lashed panes, but inside, 47 figures swayed in dim light, mouths moving in perfect harmony. Silent night swelled, ethereal, unbroken. No frenzy, only serenity washing over gaunt faces, rags transformed to robes by some inner glow. Watson's mustache twitched, loyal heart torn between science and spectacle. Incredible. But why forever? No fatigue, no halt for breath. Crowe smiled thinly. Faith's endurance. They've transcended fleshly limits. Thorne pressed forward, voice raw. Transcended? Hargrove vanished mid-sermon, sir. Others fade, one by one. Their beds empty at dawn, no trace. What have you done? Lestrade whirled on Crowe. Vanished? You omitted that, Doctor. Holmes's gaunt frame tensed, hawk nose flaring as logic fractured against the inexplicable. Records, Crowe. Full patient logs. Reluctantly, Crowe unlocked a drawer, sliding forth ledgers. Holmes pored over them, Watson peering close. Names blurred in candlelight. Hargrove gone 12. 24. Ellis the pickpocket, 12. 25. 45 more, ascending dates, each entry. Session complete, light received. Blackwood's page latest, ringleader stable, observes. A seed planted. Blackwood, wild-haired manipulator, untouched. Holmes recalled his face at the grate. Join us. Revenge unmet, Thorne whispered. I loved one, Ellis. He sang of forgiveness before. Gone. If this is your progress. Crowe slammed the ledger. Hysteria claims them. Runaways into the blizzard or worse. My work saves souls from Bedlam's pits. Lestrade's hand hovered near his whistle. Enough. I'll seal the ward till forensics— No, Holmes interjected, mind ablaze. The threat isn't madness. It's contagion. Whatever grips them spreads. Blackwood calls to the rational mind, mine. He turned to the window, meeting those eyes again. Blackwood's among them, charismatic gleam promising keys to Holmes's own cage. Intellect's isolation, Moriarty's shadow lingering, voids no violin could fill. Watson gripped his shoulder. Sherlock, we need air. Clarity. But as they exited, a low rumble shook the floor, song surging. Windows frosting with breath from below. Thorne paled. They're rising. Lestrade barked orders to constables outside, but Holmes lingered, vulnerability cracking his shell. What if Crowe unwittingly unleashed Grace's counterfeit, or true redemption, mocking his atheism? Dawn's grey light pierced the storm, illuminating footprints in fresh snow, leading not away, but toward a derelict East End warehouse, Blackwood's old music hall haunt. The tempter beckoned. Yet deeper, Holmes felt the vice's twist. Ignore it, and 47 souls, and his own, might sing into oblivion, pursue, and faith's irrational hook might reel him under. Comment if you've known someone who found their way back. The blizzard's howl clawed at the hansom cab's windows as it rattled through Whitechapel's labyrinthine alleys, snow piling like a shroud over the cobblestones. Holmes sat rigid, deerstalker pulled low, his hawkish profile etched in the faint glow of a lantern swinging from the driver's perch. Watson shifted beside him, breath fogging the glass, his sturdy frame tense with unspoken worry. Footprints, dozens of them bare and deliberate, had trailed from Bedlam's rear gate straight into the storm, converging toward this forsaken corner of the East End. Blackwood's warehouse, once a raucous music hall where the madman had crooned to sold-out crowds before melancholia claimed him, now derelict, its walls sagging under years of neglect. Holmes's mind raced, piecing fragments. The ledger's cryptic light received, the patient's eerie carols persisting beyond their vanishing. Crowe's shifty denial masking something profane. Rationality demanded contagion, mass hysteria, perhaps drugged water supplies, but the song's residue lingered in his ears, a melody of fragile hope that mocked his atheism. Join us, Blackwood had urged through the grate, eyes gleaming with a charisma that pierced Holmes's isolation. What voids did it promise to fill? The cocaine haze he'd forsaken, or deeper, the gnawing solitude since Moriarty's plunge? Watson cleared his throat. Sherlock, this could be a trap. Lestrade's men are sealing Bedlam, but 47 souls don't just melt into snow, and those footprints, bare feet in this freeze. It's unnatural. Unnatural, Holmes echoed softly, gaze fixed on the cab's lurching path. Yet explicable. Hypnosis, communal delusion. Blackwood, the ringleader untouched, orchestrates from shadows, his revenge on Crowe, perhaps, for institutionalizing him. The cab lurched to a halt before the warehouse, the crimson note, its faded signboard creaking like a death rattle, icicles daggered from eaves, and the double doors hung ajar, exhaling a puff of warmer air laced with coal dust and something sweeter. Mulled wine? Carols? Holmes descended first, Inverness cape whipping in the gale, pipe clenched unlit between teeth. Watson followed, revolver heavy in his coat pocket, moustache beaded with melt. Inside, darkness swallowed them. Their lantern's beam sliced through motes of dust, revealing a cavernous floor littered with splintered chairs and rotted velvet curtains. Stage at the far end, shrouded in cobwebs, where Blackwood once held sway. No heat source, yet the air hummed, warmer than the storm outside. Holmes knelt, tracing the footprints, now smudged, circling inward like a spiral to oblivion. "Listen," Watson murmured, freezing. From the rafters, faint. Silent night. Holy night. Voices layered and ethereal, not 47 but amplified as if the walls themselves sang. Holmes's pulse quickened, logic fracturing. Echoes from Bedlam, carried on wind. Impossible distance, a shuffle from the wings. Nurse Thorne emerged, lantern high, her pale face streaked with frost, auburn hair escaping its pins. She'd tailed them, fierce protectiveness overriding sense. I couldn't stay. Ellis, my Ellis, was among them. He whispered of light before vanishing, said it forgave everything. Holmes rose sharply. "You risk your post." "Crowe." "Crowe lies," she spat, voice raw. "Experiments in the basement wards, electrotherapeutics, mesmerism laced with laudanum." Patients raved of visions, then peace. "But this—" Thorne gestured to the stage. "They came here, singing." Watson steadied her. "Steady, Miss Thorne, we're not alone." Footsteps echoed, heavy, deliberate. Inspector Lestrade burst through a side door, coat dusted white, wiry frame coiled like a spring. "Scotland Yard's finest, trailing your breadcrumbs, Holmes. Found more prints outside leading to a grate sewer access. But inside, bloody hell." He swung his lantern, scratched into the floorboards. "Light received, join us." And scraps of cloth. Bedlam uniforms, torn deliberate, no blood. Holmes prowled the stage, beam-catching glints. Candle stubs melted into wax pools, arranged in a circle. Residue of wax drippings spelled dates, 12, 24 to 12, 31, matching the ledgers. Blackwood's signature, no doubt. But why here? His old kingdom, where applause drowned despair. A creak overhead. They froze. Dust sifted from beams. Then a figure dropped lightly. Elias Blackwood, wild hair matted, straitjacket shredded like confetti, eyes burning with manic clarity. 42 now, he declared, voice booming like in his heyday. 5 more joined at dawn. The light claims them, Holmes. Pure unyielding, no more pits of Bedlam, no crow's needles. Watson leveled his revolver. "Stand down, man. You're coming back." Blackwood laughed, a rich theatrical role. "Back to chains. I was darkness incarnate, debts, drink, a wife's overdose on my watch." But the song, it forgave. "Effort and grace, detective. Yours awaits." Holmes stepped forward, hawk-nosed face inches from Blackwood's. "Hypnosis, drugs. Explain the footprints, the warmth. Contagion of the mind." "Contagion?" Blackwood leaned in, breath warm with cider. "Call it what you will. Crowe peddled false cures, this is real. Join and fill your voids. Moriarty's ghost, your brother's silence, Watson's wars, they fade." Holmes recoiled, the name piercing like shrapnel. "How do you—" "I see you, rational man." Blackwood extended a scarred hand. 5 resist still. Thorne's Ellis among them, clinging to flesh. "Help us free them." Thorne gasped. "Ellis lives." Lestrade whistled sharply, signaling hidden constables. "Enough theatre. You're under—" Blackwood vaulted backward into shadows, song erupting from unseen throats. All is calm, all is bright. The circle flared, not wax, but phosphorus igniting, blinding white. Holmes' shielded eyes coughing acrid smoke. When vision cleared, Blackwood gone. A trapdoor gaping beneath the stage. Watson rushed it, sewer grate below, flowing east toward the Thames. Thorne clutched a scrap of cloth, Ellis's. "He's down there." Holmes stared into the black maw, heart pounding against reason's cage. Pursuit meant descending into irrationality, risking the mind's unraveling. Yet the song pulled, a counterfeit grace whispering redemption's lie. or truth? Lestrade cursed. Reinforcements en route. Holmes? Holmes lit his pipe at last, flame steadying nerves. We follow. But arm yourselves against more than madmen. They descended, lanterns bobbing into fetid tunnels where sewage lapped ankles, echoes amplifying the carols into a dirge. Walls glistened with slime, graffiti ancient, forgiven. Holmes's boots splashed, mind cataloguing, air warmer still. Impossible in depths. Voices ahead converging. A junction loomed, tunnels branching. Left, silence. Right, song swelling. Footprints in muck veered right. Thorne whispered, "Ellis." Watson gripped Holmes's arm. "Your lead, old chap." Holmes chose right, vice tightening. What if Blackwood's light was no delusion but a faith he'd long dismissed, effort met by mystery? Deeper they plunged, carols wrapping like chains, Blackwood's laugh fading into hymn. Then a child's voice pierced, "Impossible, no children in Bedlam, help us sing forever." Holmes froze, not patience. Something older stirred in the Thames underbelly, and his world-view teetered on the brink. The fetid air thickened as Holmes pressed forward, the child's voice lingering like a half-remembered dream from his own shadowed youth. Lantern light danced erratically on the tunnel walls, revealing veins of quartz that shouldn't gleam so unnaturally in this underworld. Sewage sloshed around their calves now, cold and insistent, carrying the faint rot of forgotten things. Watson trudged beside him, revolver half-drawn, his breath ragged not just from exertion, but from the growing doubt etching lines deeper into his weathered face. Thorne followed close, her skirts hiked high, eyes wide with a mix of terror and fierce hope for Ellis. Lestrade brought up the rear, muttering oaths under his breath, his lantern swinging like a pendulum counting down to madness. That voice, high, pure, slicing through the choral haze, shouldn't exist here. Bedlam held no innocence that young, its wards brimmed with the broken remnants of adulthood's cruelties. Holmes's mind raced, cataloguing anomalies, the warming air defying the winter chill above, the footprints multiplying as if a procession had passed recently, the song evolving, no longer mere carols but layered with ancient cadences, Hebrew undertones he'd once dismissed as patient's delusions from Dr. Crowe's experimental sedatives. "Keep moving," Holmes whispered, his voice steady despite the vice squeezing his chest. Rationality demanded evidence, yet each step pulled him toward the irrational, a gravitational force he'd long attributed to weakness in lesser minds. What if this was no mere escape, no prank of phosphorus and theatrics? Blackwood's words clawed back, "Help us free them." Free from what, or to what? The tunnel widened into a cavernous chamber, the Thames underbelly bloating into a forgotten cistern. Brick arches soared overhead, dripping condensation that plinked like hesitant piano keys. In the center, a makeshift altar of driftwood and bone scraps, encircled by more wax stubs, their wicks long extinguished. The song swelled here, emanating not from throats but from the walls themselves, vibrations humming through stone into their bones. 5 figures huddled against the far wall, patients, gaunt and wild-eyed, their asylum garb torn and muddied. Among them, a man with vacant stare, Ellis, Thorne's charge, his lips moving silently to the melody. Thorne broke free, splashing toward him. "Ellis, it's me, Amelia." He turned slowly, eyes focusing with painful clarity. "Nurse Thorne, the light, it sings in us now. No more pain." She knelt, grasping his arms, feeling the unnatural warmth of his skin. "What light? Tell me, Ellis, what did Blackwood do to you?" The others stirred, murmuring in unison, the forever carol, given freely, taken back by the rational ones. Lestrade shoved past, cuffs at the ready. "Right, you lot, hands up. Scotland Yard's got questions." But Holmes held up a hand, eyes narrowing on the altar. "No restraints yet. Observe." He approached cautiously, pipe clenched between teeth, the tobacco's bite grounding him. Upon the wood lay a tattered ledger, pages yellowed, ink faded, entries from 1780, patient logs not from Bedlam but from some defunct sect, the Eternal Choir. Names scratched out, replaced with symbols, crosses inverted, stars encircled. Beneath it, a vial of clear liquid, Stopper cracked, residue shimmering like quicksilver. Watson peered over his shoulder. Morphine? Or worse, Crowe's serum. Holmes uncorked it gingerly, inhaling. Not opium. Laudanum trace, but laced with ergot, hallucinogenic mold, biblical in origin. The plagues of Egypt, rye gone bad, dancing fits, visions of the divine. Blackwood's light was chemistry, weaponized faith. Yet as he straightened, the child's voice returned, closer now, from a side passage half submerged. Help us. Sing. Forever. Thorne whirled. That wasn't Ellis. None of them are children. Holmes's pulse quickened, reason fracturing at the edges. Echoes, he told himself, acoustic trick, but the air grew heavier, sweeter, laced with incense no sewer could produce. The patients rose as one, forming a semicircle, their humming syncing with the walls. Ellis extended a hand to Thorne. Join us, sister. The song heals. No more chains of flesh. She recoiled, but her eyes betrayed conflict, the exhaustion of years tending the forsaken, the secret ache for something beyond Bedlam's bars. I've seen your pain, Ellis, but this isn't peace. Lestrade lunged for Ellis, only for the man to sidestep with eerie grace, grabbing the inspector's lantern and hurling it into the water. Sparks flew, plunging half the chamber into gloom. Chaos erupted, patients scattering like shadows, their song fracturing into laughter, Blackwood's timbre woven through. Watson fired a warning shot into the ceiling, mortar crumbling. Stand down! Holmes seized Thorne's arm, pulling her back as the group funneled into the side passage. The water there rose to knees, current pulling eastward. Blackwood's trail, undeniable. We pursue, Holmes said. Voice low, urgent, but separate. Watson, Lestrade, flank left tunnel, cut them off at the next junction. Thorne, with me. Your knowledge of these men is our edge. Lestrade hesitated, water lapping his thighs. You're splitting us in this hell. Madness. Precisely the point, Holmes replied, meeting his gaze. Or salvation. Go. The inspector nodded grimly, vanishing with Watson into the left branch. Their lanterns, twin fireflies winking out. Alone with Thorne, Holmes waded into the submerged passage, the song now a siren's call, intimate, probing his defenses. She shivered beside him, clutching Ellis's cloth scrap like a talisman. Why help me find him? You don't believe in their forever? Holmes paused, water swirling around his waist, the chill seeping into bones he'd armored with logic. Belief is irrelevant. Truth is, and something here defies my every deduction. Blackwood knows it, taunts me with it. A rational man fears nothing but the unknown. This is the abyss staring back. Thorne's hand brushed his in the dark, unintended, electric. Then face it. For all of us. Deeper they ventured, the passage narrowing, forcing shoulders against slime-slick walls. The child's voice morphed, multiple now, giggling amid the carols, peering through a grate ahead, another chamber, larger, lit by bioluminescent fungi clinging to arches, casting an otherworldly glow. There, Blackwood knelt before a crude icon, a carved Christ-child, eyes inlaid with stolen asylum glass reflecting the light. Around him, more patients, dozens, not 5, swaying in ecstatic rhythm. And at the center, not Ellis, but a figure shrouded in rags, tiny, childlike, humming the lead. Impossible. Bedlam's roster, no minors. Blackwood looked up as if sensing them. Come, detective, see the miracle. The lost ones return. Holmes gripped the grate, iron-biting palms. Rationality screamed retreat. Call reinforcements, seal the tunnels. But Thorne's breath quickened beside him, her faith in humanity clashing with his skepticism. What if Blackwood offered not madness but a fractured grace, a redemption born of desperation, effort laced with mystery? The child figure turned, hood falling back. Not a child, but a dwarfish man, Bedlam inmate long thought dead, eyes burning with fervor. Sing with us, Mr. Holmes, forever free. Thorne gasped. Jacob, the waif, from Ward 7. Presumed drowned last Yuletide. Holmes's mind reeled, pieces slotting, drowned but not dead. ergot visions sustaining them underground, or something profane, ancient rites beneath the city. Blackwood rose, beckoning. Your friend Watson nears from behind. Choose, arrest us or hear the song's truth. Footsteps echoed, Watson's voice calling faintly. Holmes! The vice tightened unbearably. Dive into the song or drag them to light. His hand trembled on the grate, worldview cracking like the Thames ice above. Then Thorne whispered, almost prayer-like, grace and effort, Sherlock. Both needed. As Watson burst into view, revolver raised, Blackwood shattered a vial at his feet, gas hissing, sweet and choking. Vision blurred, the song invading Holmes's skull, promising peace amid the storm. He staggered, Thorne catching him, the child's laugh swelling triumphant. In that haze, a whisper only he heard. The rational man falls first. They collapsed into darkness, the carols wrapping them like a shroud, pulling toward whatever eternity Blackwood promised. But faint against the melody, Watson's shout, hold on! Rescue or revelation? The tunnel claimed them, and Holmes wondered if reason could survive the depths. The haze lifted like fog from the Thames, leaving Sherlock Holmes's throat raw and his temples pulsing with the residue of Blackwood's vial. He lay on uneven stone, the chill seeping through his Inverness cape, mingling with the metallic tang of blood from a split lip. Around him, the cavern breathed, damp walls glistening under torchlight, roots twisting through mortar-like veins, and the ceaseless hum of voices weaving God Rest Ye Merry Gentlemen into the air. It wasn't frantic now, but hypnotic, pulling at the edges of his mind where logic fought to regroup. His wrists ached under soft bindings of frayed linen, not cruel iron, but insistent, like a mother's hand on a wayward child. Amelia Thorne stirred beside him, her auburn hair disheveled, pale cheeks flushed from the gas. Across the circle of singers, John Watson groaned, pushing himself up on one elbow, his mustache twitching in confusion. The revolver was gone, tucked no doubt into Blackwood's rags. 47 patients, or what remained of them, formed the ring, their faces gaunt but peaceful, eyes half-lidded in rapture. Jacob, the dwarfish figure, swayed at the center, his waifish frame dwarfed by a makeshift altar of stacked crates draped in tattered cloth, flickering candles casting shadows that danced like lost souls. Elias Blackwood loomed over the altar, wild hair framing eyes that burned with quiet triumph. His voice cut through the melody, low and theatrical, the cadence of a music hall showman undimmed by years in Bedlam's grip. Welcome to the Undercroft, Mr. Holmes, where the mad find melody and the rational taste eternity. Holmes twisted against the bonds, his hawk-nosed face sharpening with disdain. Your parlor tricks won't unravel me, Blackwood. Ergotamine in the gas, echoes amplified in these tunnels. Simple hallucination. Release us, or Lestrade will bury this cult under Scotland Yard's boot. Blackwood chuckled. A rumble like distant thunder. Cult? No, detective. Sanctuary. These souls you call lost, drowned in the Thames, starved in wards, broken by crow's needles, they sing because they've been reclaimed. Grace found them here, in the depths where your gaslights fear to shine. Thorne's breath hitched beside Holmes, her severe features softening as she watched Jacob hum, his tiny hands clapping softly. Jacob, she whispered, almost to herself, I tended him last winter. He slipped into the snow, gone. How? Holmes shot her a glance, irritation flaring at her wavering tone. Sentiment clouds judgment, Nurse Thorne. They're inmates, surviving on scraps and delusion. Watson, he called across the circle, voice steady despite the pounding in his skull. On your feet, John. We're cataloguing evidence. Not joining the chorus. Watson rubbed his eyes, sturdy frame uncoiling as he assessed the scene, army discipline kicking in. By Jove, Holmes, this is no fever dream. These faces, half the missing roster. Blackwood, what's your game? Crowe will have the peelers swarming by dawn. The patient's song swelled then, voices layering in uncanny harmony, no discord despite their ragged throats. Holmes felt it creep under his skin, not madness but a warmth, foreign and insidious, stirring memories he'd buried. His brother's cool dismissal, the cocaine haze after Moriarty's shadow, nights when reason alone left him hollow. He shook it off, mind racing through variables, escape routes via the great above, Watson's strength to snap bonds, Thorne's knowledge of the wards. Blackwood stepped closer, rags whispering against stone, his charismatic presence filling the space like stage fog. You chase puzzles, Holmes, but ignore the greatest. Why men like you, armored in intellect, shatter first? Look at Jacob. Crowe deemed him melancholic, dosed him with laudanum till his heart stuttered, yet here he leads the carol. Not science revived him. Faith, effort in song, grace in surrender. Thorne leaned forward, her protective fire igniting. You've poisoned them, haven't you? That vile opium derivatives, making them pliant. I saw your notes smuggled in wards. This isn't redemption, it's control. Blackwood's eyes softened, almost paternal. Poison? No, elixir of clarity. Bedlam above crushes spirits with straps and solitude. Dr. Crowe profits from our pain, his experiments carving brains for prestige. Down here we heal, 47 voices, eternal at Christmas. Join us, nurse. Your heart knows the pull. Watson's fists clenched, moustache bristling. Enough riddles. Holmes, if we rush him... But Holmes held up a hand, hawk eyes narrowing on the altar. A glint there, vials like the one shattered above, plus faded icons. Byzantine saints etched in gold leaf, out of place in this sewer. Planted seeds, he thought. Blackwood's backstory as performer masking deeper knowledge. Music halls trafficked to cult pamphlets, perhaps ergot cults from the continent. Yet the patient's serenity gnawed. No tremors, no withdrawal shakes. Impossible, unless... One singer faltered, a woman with hollow cheeks, rising unsteadily. Elias, she murmured, voice cracking from disuse. The pain. It returns without the song. Blackwood knelt beside her, pressing a hand to her forehead, murmuring words Holmes couldn't catch. Latin? The woman's eyes cleared, then glazed peaceful again, rejoining the hum. Holmes's pulse quickened. Hypnosis layered on narcotics, or mass delusion sustained by repetition, Stockholm's grip in reverse. Thorne whispered urgently. They're not chained, Holmes, they choose this. Like me, orphaned in workhouses, clinging to duty till it broke. What if Blackwood offers what Crowe steals? Holmes recoiled inwardly, her words pricking his detachment. Vulnerability. He'd built empires of deduction on it, scorning faith as the opium of the weak. Yet here, in the vice of stone and song, his worldview strained. Watson met his gaze across the flames, loyal eyes questioning. Ally or anchor? Blackwood straightened, sensing the fracture. Your doctor friend nears awakening, but Thorne wavers. And you, detective? Reason demands proof. Listen deeper. The carol shifted to O Come All Ye Faithful, Jacob's piping voice piercing sweetest. Holmes closed his eyes despite himself, the melody evoking childhood firesides, rare warmth before the mind's cold forge. A vision flickered, not hallucination, but memory sharpened. His father's Bible, unread, gathering dust while equations filled his nights. Grace and effort, Thorne had said above. Was this the test? Surrender logic for madness? No. He twisted sharply, bonds loosening from sweat-slicked struggle. Watson. Now? He mouthed silently. Watson nodded imperceptibly, surging forward as Holmes lunged. Chaos erupted, patients scattering like startled birds, Blackwood grabbing a torch, flames hissing. Thorne hesitated, torn, her hand brushing Holmes's arm. Watson tackled a guard patient, fists flying clean. Holmes seized Blackwood's collar. The truth, man, what elixir? Where the missing? Blackwood laughed even as torchlight wavered. Truth? Taste it. He smashed another vial at Holmes's feet, gas blooming thicker, sweeter. Vision swam, the song roaring triumphant. Thorne cried out, pulling Holmes back, but darkness clawed again. Watson's shout echoed, Holmes, fight it! They tumbled into the fray, patience closing like a tide, hands gentle yet unyielding. Blackwood vanished into shadows, Jacob's laugh ringing. Holmes gasped against the fumes, reason fracturing further. Was the song salvation or snare? Thorne's grip tightened. Faith or folly? As bonds reformed and the chorus enveloped them anew, a distant rumble shook the cavern, pebbles raining from above. Lestrade's reinforcements, or the Thames cracking free? The Undercroft trembled, promising collapse or revelation, and Holmes wondered if eternity waited not in song, but in the choice ahead. If this story has gripped you, hit the like button. It helps reach more people who would love this. The rumble grew into a guttural roar, dust sifting from the cavern ceiling like ash from a dying fire. Holmes coughed against the cloying gas, his lungs burning with the scent of laudanum and something sharper, metallic. Opium laced with chemicals he couldn't yet name. Thorne's fingers dug into his sleeve, her breath ragged at his ear. "Hold on, Mr. Holmes. The walls. They're shifting." Patience milled in the flickering torchlight, their carol now a fractured hum, joy to the world mangled into dissonant echoes. Watson wrestled free from two assailants, his army-honed fists connecting with a thud against a jaw, but more closed in, their eyes glazed, mouths moving in perpetual song. Blackwood's laughter lingered in the shadows, a serpent's hiss amid the melody. Reason, Holmes commanded himself. The tremor wasn't natural. Blasting powder? No. The vibrations pulsed rhythmically like machinery far below. Gas main rupture from the blizzard above. Bedlam's ancient foundations perched on Thames silt. One fracture and the river would swallow them whole. "Watson!" he barked, voice hoarse. "The supports! Left tunnel!" His friend pivoted, spotting iron beams buckling under pebble cascades. They lunged together, Thorne trailing, her skirts tearing on jagged rock. A patient, young Jacob, the boy with the piping voice, barreled into Watson's path, arms outstretched not in attack but embrace, singing of silent nights. Watson shoved him aside gently, guilt flashing in his eyes. "Sorry, lad. Not now." The trio dashed into a narrower passage, the chorus pursuing like hounds. Holmes's mind raced, piecing fragments. Blackwood's vials, the eternal carolling ward above, Crowe's shifty ledgers hinting at experimental serums for melancholia. Not madness, but induced euphoria, a drug binding souls to song, silencing screams of the damned. But why Christmas carols? Ritual? Cover for something profane? Light ahead, faint, greenish from gas lamps lining a forgotten sublevel. They burst into a chamber vast as a cathedral crypt, walls slick with Thames seepage, puddles reflecting torch flames like hellfire. Crates stamped Crowe imports East Indies loomed, some splintered, revealing vials by the dozen. In the center, a makeshift altar, iron table stained dark, surrounded by patients kneeling, heads bowed in rapturous hum. Thorne gasped, crossing herself. "The choir!" "It's born here." Holmes knelt by a crate, uncorking a vial cautiously. The gas whispered out, sweet as mulled wine, evoking hearths he never knew. His pulse slowed, visions tugging, a violin in his hands at Baker Street, notes blending with imagined choirs. No, poison for the will, amplifying buried longings. Blackwood wasn't mad. He was the brewer, former performer turned alchemist of addiction. Footsteps echoed, heavy, authoritative. Dr. Elias Crowe emerged from a side archway, mutton chops twitching, lantern swinging. His corpulent frame filled the door, eyes darting to Thorne with betrayal's sting. Nurse Thorne, consorting with intruders. And you, Holmes, your meddling ends in Bedlam's bowels. Watson leveled a glare, knuckles white. "What's this, Crowe? Turning paupers into singing puppets?" The doctor chuckled, low and oily, adjusting his waistcoat. "Enlightenment, Watson. These wretches came broken. Suicides, rakes, orphans crushed by London's fog. My serum? Eternal joy. No more despair, only carols. Blackwood perfects it, I fund it. The Queen herself seeks cures for Empire's weary soldiers." Holmes rose slowly, bonds gone but head throbbing, superstition dressed as science. "Your joy erodes the mind. 47 patients vanished into song, bodies piling while voices echo above." "Where are they?" Crowe's smile faltered, shifty eyes gleaming. "Perfection requires sacrifice. Some persist indefinitely. Others, well, the Thames is forgiving." Thorne stepped forward, voice steel amid tremor. "I saw the ledgers, Doctor. Experiments on children like Jacob. Unethical, inhuman. Silence fell, broken only by the kneeling patient's murmur. Crowe's face hardened, hand slipping to a pocket. You were loyal, Amelia. Pity. He shattered a vial at their feet, gas blooming thicker, Holmes's vision blurring. Thorne swayed, clutching her throat, memories flooding her, workhouse lashes, a lover lost to the bottle, Bedlam, her grim salvation, now poisoned faith. Watson charged, but guards, patients dosed into obedience, swarmed. Fists flew, grunts mingling with "Hark the Herald Angels." Holmes dodged, grabbing Crowe's lapels, slamming him against the altar. The formula, Crowe. Antidote? The superintendent wheezed, triumph flickering. No antidote, only surrender. Feel it, Holmes. Your intellect craves this peace. Doubt clawed Holmes's core. Childhood Christmases, absent father preaching duty over delight, Moriarty's shadow mocking emotion. The gas sang of release, violin strings vibrating eternal. His grip loosened. No. He headbutted Crowe, stars exploding, then rifled pockets, a syringe labeled purity reversal. Crude, but... Thorne slumped beside him, whispering. Grace and effort. He jabbed her neck, her gasp. Then clarity returning, eyes fierce. Watson fought on, blood trickling mustache, until Holmes tossed him another syringe from the crate. Prick yourself. Watson complied mid-punch, vigor surging. They cleared a ring, patience faltering as gas thinned. Crowe scrambled back, bellowing for Blackwood. The rumble intensified, ceiling cracking audibly. Water trickled, then gushed, Thames probing like fingers. Jacob appeared, wild-eyed, vial in hand. Sing with us, Mr. Holmes, forever Christmas. Holmes snatched it, smashing it underfoot. Boy, wake up! It's lies! Jacob lunged, but Thorne intercepted, hugging him fiercely. Enough, child! Come back! The boy sobbed, song breaking into wails. Humanity pierced the haze. Crowe fled deeper, Blackwood's shadow merging with his. Pursuit impossible. Tunnel collapsing, boulders tumbling. Watson dragged Holmes toward exit as walls groaned. Lestrade's men above. Holmes wondered aloud, coughing grit. Watson nodded grimly. Pray so. Else we're carolers eternal. They clawed upward, Thorne carrying Jacob, water rising ankle-deep, cold as judgment. Holmes's mind whirled, Crowe's motive, legacy via serum sales to asylums worldwide. Blackwood's revenge, music hall ruined by scandal, now twisting joy to torment. A final heave burst them into the main undercroft, patients scattering as blizzard winds howled through fissures overhead. Gas lamps sputtered, carols fading to moans. But Blackwood waited atop a crate stair, torch raised, silhouette demonic against snow glint. Not yet, detective. The true ward awaits, where 47 souls sing unbroken. He dropped the torch into a puddle of accelerant, flames whooshing skyward, sealing paths, escape forked, burning tunnel or flooding Thames chute. Thorne's eyes met Holmes's, faith spark amid inferno. Which way? Holmes hesitated, reason fracturing once more. The choice would test not just survival, but the soul he'd long denied. Flames licked closer, water surged, and Blackwood's laugh promised revelations deadlier than death. Flames roared upward like the gates of some infernal choir loft, devouring the wooden supports with a hunger that mirrored the madness below. Sherlock Holmes stood frozen for that split second, his hawk-like eyes darting between the inferno sealing one path and the black maw of the Thames chute yawning before them, water already churning with debris and the faint, sickly glow of gas residue. His mind, that relentless engine, calculated velocities, burn rates, survival odds. Yet beneath the logic, a tremor stirred, unbidden, like the first crack in a frozen Thames. Faith's spark in Thorne's gaze pulled at him, a force he'd always dismissed as delusion, now whispering of choices beyond deduction. Watson gripped his arm, mustache flecked with soot, voice hoarse over the crackle. Holmes, decide, we can't linger. Thorne clutched Jacob tighter, the boy's small frame limp against her, his earlier sobs now muffled whimpers, sinking with the distant carol echoes filtering through the stone. Elias Blackwood's silhouette had vanished into the blaze, his laughter dissolving into the hiss of melting iron, But his words lingered. The true ward awaits. Holmes' pulse hammered. Not from fear, he told himself, but from the puzzle's unfinished edge. Crowe was there too, the corpulent superintendent's flight betraying more than cowardice. Legacy, Holmes thought, serum for asylums, eternal compliance masked as joy. But Blackwood's revenge twisted it darker, a performer's grudge against a world that silenced him. The flooding chute it is, Holmes declared finally, voice steady despite the chaos within. Reason demanded survival first. Revelation could follow. Watson nodded, slinging his revolver uselessly over his shoulder, while Thorne whispered to Jacob, "Hold on, love, we're going home." They plunged into the chute's icy embrace, water slamming up to their knees in an instant, the current dragging like vengeful spirits. Holmes led, Inverness Cape sodden and heavy, his deerstalker lost to the tunnel collapse earlier. The cold pierced bone deep, a Victorian winter's judgment amplified by the asylum's subterranean chill, carrying scents of sewage and forgotten sins. Boulders groaned overhead, dislodged by the fire's heat above, tumbling past in splashes that nearly swept Jacob from Thorne's arms. Watson bellowed encouragement, his army surgeon's grit shining through even as his wounded shoulder throbbed anew from the earlier fray. Reason fracturing, Holmes admitted inwardly, the phrase looping as water rose to their waists. He'd faced Moriarty's web, Irene's allure, yet this symphony of madness, challenged the fortress of his intellect. Carols warped through the rush. God rest ye, merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay. Blackwood's doing, no doubt, the serum's residue in the air, binding souls to holiday torment. Why Christmas, Holmes pondered, dodging a floating crate stamped with Crowe's insignia, experimental pharmaceuticals procured from shadowy continent chemists. A grate loomed ahead, iron bars warped but intact, blocking the final drop to the Thames. Watson lunged, wrenching at it with raw strength, veins bulging on his sturdy forearms. It stuck, years of rust. Holmes scanned, spotting a loose pin, his long fingers working feverishly amid the surge. Thorne pressed Jacob against the wall, her auburn hair plastered, severe features softened by desperation. "You see it, don't you?" she gasped to Holmes. "Beyond logic, something watches over us." "Superstition," Holmes muttered, but the pin gave way with a metallic screech, the grate swinging free just as a wave crashed over them. They spilled out into the Thames' murky fury, blizzard winds whipping snow-laced spray across London's underbelly. The river clawed at them, current swift from upstream mills, but Watson spotted a mooring post near Bedlam's eastern wall, half submerged in the storm surge. "Grab hold," he shouted, hauling Thorne first, then Jacob, whose eyes fluttered open, murmuring fragments of silent night. Holmes clung last, lungs burning, the cold numbing his thoughts to a singular clarity. Survival was no accident. They collapsed onto the snow-swept embankment, breaths ragged clouds in the gaslit gloom, Whitechapel's fog rolling in from the east like a shroud. Distant carols from street urchins pierced the howl. "Joy to the world, the Lord is come," innocent echoes mocking the asylum's perversion. "Lestrade's men," Watson panted, scanning the shadows. A lantern bobbed closer, the wiry inspector's cynical face emerging from the flurry, flanked by constables. "About time, Holmes. Thought you'd joined the carolers." He'd cordoned the hospital perimeter after their frantic signal earlier. Rifles trained on straggling patients, spilling from side doors, their songs faltering in the open air. Thorne cradled Jacob, rocking him as warmth returned, her workhouse-hardened resolve cracking into quiet tears. "He's free of it," she whispered, feeling his pulse steady. But others. Holmes rose, shaking off river sludge, mind already dissecting the escape. Crowe and Blackwood fled into the burning tunnel, motive converging. Blackwood, former music hall star, committed after a scandalous breakdown, accused of dosing rivals with laudanum-laced absinthe. Bedlam's records Holmes had glimpsed showed Crowe's experiments, a serum blending opiates, hallucinogens, and some biblical-era resin smuggled from Jerusalem ruins, frankincense derivatives twisted to induce euphoric catatonia, eternal carols as control, sold to asylums for docile wards. Blackwood, immune or tolerant from his performer days, turned it weaponized revenge on a society that deemed him mad. "We pursue," Holmes stated, striding toward the hospital's breached rear, where flames licked the sky. Lestrade protested, "It's a death trap, man, the roof will cave." Yet Holmes pressed on, Watson at his side, Thorne insisting on joining with Jacob, secured by a constable. The sanctuary wing's undercroft entrance gaped, smoke belching like dragon's breath. Inside, heat warped the air, walls shedding plaster in ashen flakes. Patient moans harmonized faintly. "Oh, come, all ye faithful." Holmes navigated by memory, deer-stalkerless head bowed against falling embers, his cape singed at the hems. A side chamber opened, Crowe's private lab, vials shattered, notes curling in the blaze. Amid the wreckage, Dr. Elias Crowe huddled, mutton chops singed, corpulent form trembling. "Holmes," he croaked, eyes shifty no more, stripped to raw terror. It was Blackwood. He stole the formula, dosed the wards for his mad theatre. "Lies," Thorne spat, stepping forward, her pale features fierce. "I saw your ledgers. Sales to Colney Hatch Hanwell. Profiting on souls." Crowe deflated, ambition crumbling like the ceiling joists. "Legacy," he murmured. "Bedlam's ridicule. Lunatics running the asylum. The serum promised peace, endless joy." Watson restrained him as Holmes rifled singed papers. Manifests to a Mayfair club, gentlemen investors eager for compliant madhouses. But Blackwood's script, his manifesto scrawled in margin. 47 voices, silenced by scandal, now eternal chorus. "My Bethlehem, my Bedlam." A crash echoed deeper, Blackwood's laugh again from the Christmas ward above. "He's rallying the remnants," Lestrade warned, arriving with hoses dousing outer fires. Holmes's gaze hardened, vulnerability glimpsed then buried. The puzzle demanded confrontation, but Thorne's hand on his sleeve lingered, her faith a quiet anchor. "Not alone, detective. Grace finds even skeptics." They ascended crumbling stairs, smoke thickening, carols swelling to a crescendo that clawed at sanity. The ward door hung ajar, silhouettes swaying within. 47 patients? No, fewer now, but Blackwood center stage, wild hair haloed by lantern, vial raised like a chalice. "Join us, Holmes. Taste forever Yuletide." Holmes stepped forward, revolver drawn, not to shoot but to shatter illusion. The choice loomed again, reason's bullet or something deeper. Water dripped from his brow, flames framed the madman's grin, and in that heartbeat, Holmes felt the vice tighten not on body, but soul. Blackwood hurled the vial. Holmes dodged, glass exploding in festive shards, and the true revelation dawned, deadlier than any serum. The ringleader wasn't mad, but harbinger of Holmes's own buried darkness. As patience surged, Thorne's cry cut through, Jacob's voice joining pure, untainted. "Hark the herald angels sing," a child's clarity piercing the haze. Blackwood faltered, eyes widening in betrayal, and Holmes lunged, grappling the man amid toppling candelabras. Truth spilled in the struggle. Blackwood's daughter, lost to Bedlam decades prior under Crowe's watch, innocent of madness, dosed to silence inquiries. Revenge not just performance grudge, but paternal fury, 47 souls proxy for one. They tumbled, fists flying, until Lestrade's men swarmed, subduing Blackwood as roof timbers snapped overhead. Escape now imperative, ward evacuating in chaos, Thorne guiding patients with maternal command, Watson hauling Crowe. Outside, blizzard raged unabated, but dawn's grey hinted mercy. Holmes stood apart, wind tearing at his cape, inner fortress breached. Vulnerability, not enemy, but key. Yet as Blackwood was chained, his whisper chilled. "The serums in the carols themselves, detective, sing once and you're ours forever." Had Holmes sung? A fragment in the tunnels? Paranoia seeded. The detective glanced at Thorne, her hopeful nod a lifeline. But the final ward's secrets lingered, pulling him back toward Mayfair's club, and a test where reason alone might fail utterly. The blizzard's howl chased them through London's veiled streets, snow clotting the carriage wheels as it rattled toward Mayfair. Holmes sat rigid, deerstalker shadowing eyes that darted like a cornered animal's. The whisper clung, serum in the carols. Had those tunnel notes lodged in his throat, unseen venom coursing now? Pulse thrummed unevenly, a detective's mind fracturing under its own scrutiny. Watson glanced across, mustache twitching with unspoken worry, but said nothing. Thorne huddled beside the doctor, her auburn hair escaping its pins, face etched with the exhaustion of one who had cradled too many breaking souls. Lestrade rode ahead on horseback, Blackwood shackled in a police wagon trailing behind, his laughter muffled but piercing the gale. The Diogenes Club loomed at last, its facade a bastion of silence amid the storm, a private enclave for the city's recluses, where Mycroft Holmes reigned unseen. No footman stirred. The door yielded to Holmes's key, admitting them to hushed corridors lit by gas lamps flickering like dying stars. The strangers' room enveloped them, heavy with leather armchairs and the faint scent of pipe tobacco mingled with coal dust. Mycroft awaited in his alcove, immense form dwarfing the wing-back chair, face impassive as marble under the chandelier's pallid glow. "Brother," he murmured as Sherlock entered, shedding snow like a spectral shroud. "You've brought Bedlam's pandemonium to my door." Holmes paced, Inverness cape steaming. Blackwood's tale unravels further. Crowe's experiments, serums to pacify, not cure, but the carols. They bind. 47 voices eternal, and now this. He thrust forward the shattered vial's remnants wrapped in Thorne's handkerchief. Mycroft's thick fingers probed it, nostrils flaring. Laudanum derivatives, perhaps belladonna, hallucinogenic. But the singing, psychological anchor, suggestion amplified. Thorne stepped forward, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "It's worse." Blackwood spoke of his daughter Eliza, admitted here 20 years past, not mad but questioning Crowe's treatments, silenced with doses till her heart gave out. He built this choir as echo, patients dosed, rehearsed in secret tunnels beneath Bedlam, carols as code, serum as sacrament. Watson nodded, rubbing his shoulder where the tunnel collapse had bruised it. The warehouse in Whitechapel, Blackwood's old music hall prop storage, vials hidden there, distributed through the wards. But why Christmas? Why now? Crowe slumped in a corner chair under Lestrade's glare, stirred. Ambition. The board demanded results. Fewer escapes, compliant inmates. Blackwood volunteered first, then recruited. I oversaw. But the serum mutated in them. Perpetual euphoria. Voices unending. Lestrade snorted, wiry frame taut. Lies. We've Blackwood. He'll sing true under questioning. But Holmes, your man's ranting of songs infecting you. That madness. Holmes halted, hawk-nosed profile sharpening in the lamplight. Paranoia or precision. I heard them. Hark the herald. Did I join? Silence fell, thick as the snow outside. Mycroft's gaze pierced. Vulnerability unbecoming, Sherlock. Reason your shield. Yet Holmes felt it crack. Not the serum, but the echo. Childhood carols by the fire. Mother's voice before the laudanum took her. Rationality's fortress built against such sentiment, now assailed by melody. Thorne met his eyes, her pale severity softening. You resisted, Mr. Holmes. Jacob's voice pulled you back. Clarity in a child's song. The boy, Jacob, the urchin patient, wide-eyed innocent amid the frenzy. His untainted herald had pierced the haze, yes, but doubt gnawed. Lestrade's man burst in then, breath ragged from the cold. Inspector! Blackwood's wagon overturned in the drift. He's fled into the fog. Chaos erupted. Coats snatched, doors flung wide. The club's sanctity shattered as they plunged back into the maelstrom. Mayfair's gaslights blurred to ghosts, streets empty save for swirling white. Tracks vanished under fresh powder, but Holmes knelt, gaunt fingers sifting snow, boot prints veering east toward Whitechapel's derelict haunts. Watson gripped his revolver. We'll corner him at the warehouse. Thorne clutched a lantern. No, the tunnels link there too, if he reaches them. They pressed on, wind lacerating like accusations. Holmes's mind raced, piecing. Blackwood's arc from performer to avenger, daughter's ghost fueling fury. Crowe's complicity, hiding not just scandal but his own daughter's similar fate. Seeds planted, Crowe's mutton chops twitching at Eliza's name, eyes evading. The warehouse squatted in East End squalor, its timbers groaning under ice, windows boarded like blind eyes. Coal smoke choked the air, mingling with distant urchin carols. Hark, the herald angels sing. Holmes signalled halt, revolver steady. Inside, shadows danced from a single flame. Blackwood stood amid crates stamped with music hall insignia, wild hair amain in the firelight, a fresh vial glinting. Come, detective, the final verse awaits. Sing with us, and Eliza lives eternal. Holmes advanced, voice low. Your revenge ends here. Crowe pays, Bedlam reforms. But this, eternal carols, madness, not justice. Blackwood laughed, throaty as stage thunder. Justice, Crowe stole her song, now all Bedlam sings it back, drink and join. Lestrade lunged from the flank, but Blackwood hurled a crate, props cascading, wires and masks spilling like confetti from hell. Thorne cried out as a beam cracked overhead, snow avalanching through the roof. Watson fired wide, bullet splintering wood. In the melee, Blackwood bolted for a trapdoor, tunnels again. Holmes pursued, boots slipping on ice-slick boards. Below, the labyrinth reopened, gas pockets hissing, carol echoes rebounding. Glory to the newborn king. Paranoia surged. Had he inhaled the fumes? Vision wavered, patients' faces superimposing, Thorne's hopeful nod fading. Deeper in, Blackwood cornered, chest heaving. You hear it now, don't you? The pull. Reasons lie. Faith in the song sets free. Holmes raised the revolver, finger whitening. Faith? Superstition's cloak. Yet as Blackwood lunged, Holmes hesitated, not serum, but the man's eyes. Father's grief, raw as his own buried loss. The shot grazed, Blackwood crumpling with a gasp. Recaptured, dragged up as reinforcements swarmed. Surfacing into dawn's frail light. Holmes leaned against the warehouse wall, breath ragged. Watson clapped his shoulder. Over? No. Crowe's ledgers, hidden here, names, doses. But Blackwood's whisper returns, serum in the songs. And tonight, at St. Paul's midnight mass, the full choir assembles. Bedlam's patients dosed and free. Thorne touched Holmes's arm, her voice a quiet anchor. You chose reason over rage. That's the transformation. But as they bound Blackwood anew, Holmes hummed unbidden, a fragment of herald angels. Had it taken root? The vice tightened anew, pulling toward the cathedral's spires, piercing the snow-laced sky. Comment who you suspect. Can you solve it first? The mass loomed, carols swelling from the fog, 47 voices or more, waiting to claim him utterly. The cab rattled through London's thawing streets, snow slush churning under iron wheels as gas lamps flickered like dying stars. Sherlock Holmes sat rigid, Inverness cape heavy with damp, the warehouse's chill clinging to his bones. Watson beside him fidgeted with his revolver, moustache twitching under the brim of his hat. Lestrade hunched opposite, ferret eyes darting to shadows beyond the fogged window. Nurse Thorne had insisted on coming, her severe face pale but set, auburn hair escaping its pins in defiant curls. Blackwood was trussed in the back, under guard, but his words gnawed. Serum in the songs. St. Paul's Cathedral loomed ahead, its dome a colossal ghost against the bruised sky, midnight mass underway. Carol strains leaked from arched doors. Hark the herald angels sing, multiplied, distorted, as if the building itself breathed them. Holmes's pulse quickened. He clenched his jaw against the melody burrowing inward, unbidden. Reason, he commanded himself. Hallucination from gas or Crowe's dosing. Not this. They spilled out into the throng, parishioners bundled against the wind, faces flushed with piety or port. Lestrade flashed his badge, parting the crowd like a knife through lard. Inside, the nave soared, candle flames dancing on stone vaults, incense thick as opium haze. The choir loft overflowed, not robed boys, but Bedlam's ragged souls. 47 patients, eyes glassy, mouths moving in unison. Glory to the newborn king. Their voices wove a tapestry too perfect, too relentless, drowning the organ. Crowe stood at the altar rail, mutton chops gleaming under lantern light, corpulent frames squeezed into vestments borrowed for show. He turned, shifty eyes widening fractionally at Holmes's approach. Superintendent? Holmes said flatly, stepping over a hassock. "Your wards have decamped." Crowe dabbed his brow with a lace cuff. "Mr. Holmes, a miracle of Christmas mercy. These poor souls released by divine grace or yard compassion." Lestrade snorted, but Holmes pressed closer, inhaling the man's cologne laced with chemical bite. "The ledgers from the warehouse name you, Doctor. Doses administered, voices altered. Eternal carols? Your serums work." A ripple passed through the choir. Heads turned unnaturally synchronized. Thorne gasped, pointing, a patient she knew, gaunt cheeks streaked with tears that didn't fall. Elias Blackwood twisted in his bonds at the rear, dragged forward by constables. His wild hair framed a grin, feral yet serene. "Hear them, Holmes. Pure now. No more rage. Just the song." Watson's hand steadied on Holmes's elbow. "Steady, old chap. We'll sort this." But Holmes shook him off, hawk nose flaring as he scanned the loft. Patterns emerged, patients clustered by wing, melancholics highest, their harmonies purest, seeds planted, the gas vents in tunnels, mirrors in cells, amplifying whispers. Crowe's experiments, Blackwood's rebellion fusing into this symphony of control. Lestrade barked at an usher, "Clear the pews," but Crowe raised plump hands, voice booming over the swell. "Blasphemy. These are healed by faith, not your slurs." The congregation murmured, crossing themselves, carols faltering, then surging louder. Holmes felt it, a vibration in his chest, the melody coiling like smoke. His vision blurred. Moran's ghost flickered in a patient's face, the colonel's dying sneer merging with choral bliss. Thorne clutched his sleeve, her voice a fierce whisper amid the din. "It's in the air, the compound. From the warehouse vents piped here." She nodded to grills near the altar, faint hiss escaping. Holmes nodded, mind racing, counter it. He snatched a censer from a side table, swinging it wide. The acrid swing disrupted the flow, patients coughing, harmony fracturing. Blackwood laughed from the aisle, throaty echo booming. "Too late, detective. The song chooses its singers." Crowe silenced him with a glare, but Holmes lunged, pinning the doctor against marble. "The formula, antidote." Crowe wheezed, eyes darting to the choir. "No antidote. Suggestion, amplified." Blackwood discovered my trials, dosed himself first, turned patients against me, made them sing to drown the pain. Eternal yes, till the mind breaks. Revelation struck like cold steel. Not madness imposed, but embraced. Blackwood, former performer, weaponized the serum for revenge, promising oblivion in melody. "But why the mass?" Holmes demanded, revolver pressing Crowe's throat. "Leverage," Crowe spat. "Scandal would ruin me." Blackwood threatened exposure unless I staged this. "Patients freed to sing here, proving my methods. Faith heals," he called it. Twisted gospel. Up in the loft, chaos brewed. A patient teetered on the rail, eyes rolling white, plummeting amid screams. Watson caught him barely, sturdy arms straining. The choir fractured, some clawing ears, others swaying entranced. Thorne rushed forward, her workhouse grit shining as she dosed the fallen man with charcoal from a communion kit, staunching the vapors. Holmes hauled Crowe toward the crypt stairs, Lestrade cuffing him. Blackwood surged against his guards, bellowing, "Join us, Holmes. Reason's cage. Your Moriarty proved it empty." The song fills the void. Moriarty, the name pierced deeper than gas. Holmes faltered on the steps, crypt chill enveloping them. His own abyss yawned. Cases solved, yet voids unfilled. Irene's shadow, Watson's quiet judgments. The melody tugged, offering numbness, a father's unacknowledged grief echoing Blackwood's loss. No. He fired into the stone ceiling, plaster dust raining, silencing the lure. Constables swarmed the loft, patients subdued one by one, voices hoarse to whispers. Dawn crept through rose windows gilding the wreckage, overturned candles, scattered hymnals, the air clearing to honest winter bite. Watson found him slumped on a pew, revolver loose in hand. "It's done, Holmes." Blackwood's raving in irons, Crowe's confessing everything. Holmes rubbed temples, the fragment still humming faintly within. Done? 47 souls scarred. Thorne risking all. He glanced at her, bandaging a patient nearby, her severe lines softened by purpose, eyes meeting his with unspoken thanks. Lestrade clapped his back. "Yard owes you, Holmes. Reform's coming. Bedlam's days numbered." Yet as they emerged into snow-dusted courtyard, a lone voice carried from the nave, "Silent night, holy night." Not 47, but one. Thorne's, soft and true. Holmes paused, breath clouding. Transformation, not in song but choice. Reason held, but cracked open to something human, vulnerability named. "Blackwood's trial tomorrow," Watson murmured, but whispers say more patients vanished en route, and Crowe's hidden lab, tunnels beneath the Thames, serum batches waiting. The dome watched, indifferent, as fog rolled in anew. Holmes straightened his deerstalker, the vice easing but not gone. One more descent awaited, into depths where songs birthed from darkness might yet claim their final verse. Snowflakes swirled like errant thoughts as Holmes stepped into the courtyard of Bethlem Royal Hospital, the massive dome looming above like a judgmental eye. The air bit sharp, carrying the faint echo of Nurse Amelia Thorne's solitary carol from the nave behind them. Watson walked close, his breath puffing white clouds, while Lestrade barked orders to the constables hauling Dr. Elias Crowe and Elias Blackwood toward waiting Black Marias. Crowe muttered denials, his corpulent frame sagging under the weight of exposed sins, mutton chops drooping like wilted ferns. Blackwood, wild-haired and defiant in irons, fixed Holmes with a gaze that pierced the blizzard, knowing, almost pitying. "You think chains end the song, Holmes?" Blackwood rasped, voice cutting through the wind. "It hums in your veins now." Moriarty knew, logic's a thinner veil than faith's delusion. Holmes ignored him, pulling his Inverness cape tighter against the chill that seeped deeper than weather. Moriarty. The name lingered like opium smoke, stirring ghosts Holmes had buried under case files and violin strings. His father's unyielding expectations, Irene Adler's elusive laugh, Void's reason couldn't fill. But sentiment was the detective's enemy. He crushed it under boot heel in the slushy snow. "To Baker Street first," Watson said, clapping gloved hands for warmth. "Mrs. Hudson's tea will steady us before the trial." No. Holmes's hawk-nosed profile sharpened against the grey sky. Crowe's lab. The tunnels beneath the Thames. He confessed fragments under duress. Patients vanishing en route means serum caches. Unfinished business. Lestrade. "Your men secure the chapel loft." "Thorne." He turned to her, auburn hair escaping pins, pale face flushed from bandaging the subdued 47. "Guide us." "You knew the underbelly." Amelia hesitated, eyes flicking to the hospital's barred windows, where faint murmurs persisted, not madness but residue. Her workhouse scars ached in the cold, reminders of her own buried losses, a brother's fever death, unspoken love for a patient long gone. "Very well," she said softly. "The access is through the old mortuary, east wing, but the tunnels flood with tide. We must hurry before the river claims them." Lestrade grumbled but nodded, wiry frame tense. "Reforms or no, Yard wants this buried clean, no loose ends." They plunged back into Bedlam's bowels, gas lamps flickering shadows on peeling walls stained with decades of despair. The mortuary smelled of damp stone and formaldehyde, iron grates creaking open to reveal a spiral stair plunging into black. Thorne led with a bull's-eye lantern, its beam-slicing fog thick as regret. Water dripped rhythmic, echoing the insidious carol Holmes still half heard in his skull. Halfway down, Crowe twisted in cuffs, shoved by a constable. "The serum wasn't poison, Holmes. Evolution." Blackwood's melancholy unlocked it. His music hall trances amplified the vapors. 47 voices, eternal harmony, freedom from pain's cacophony. Lestrade shoved him harder. "Save it for the doctor." Deeper, the tunnel widened into a cavernous chamber, Thames mud seeping through cracks, air heavy with chemical tang. Workbenches lined walls, vials of shimmering blue serum glowing faintly under lantern light. Distillation coils twisted like serpents, journals splayed open to frantic scrawls. Patient 0. Blackwood. Inoculated post-arrest, 1888. Chiral hypnosis synergy perfect. Replication viable. Holmes snatched a journal, gaunt fingers tracing entries. Crowe's ambition laid bare. Experiments on the melancholic, blending laudanum derivatives with Blackwood's hypnotic chants to induce euphoric catatonia. No madness but engineered bliss, patients singing till organs failed, 47 over years. Bodies vanished into these depths for disposal. Watson whistled low, mustache twitching, diabolical. Explains the lofts, the cryptrite, a final mass dosing to cover tracks before reformed shutter Bedlam. Thorne knelt by a crate, prying it open to reveal more vials, dozens. Enough for Whitechapel slums, half London lost to song. Her voice cracked. I suspected. Patience too calm, eyes vacant yet rapt. Elias Blackwood whispered to me once of vengeance on the world that silenced his stage. Crowe promised amplification. Holmes uncorked a vial, inhaling cautiously. The fragment from Chapel hit anew. Euphoric tug, voids filling with melody's balm. His mind flashed. Childhood Christmas. Father's cold dismissal of his deductions as parlor tricks. Moriarty's chessboard logic mirroring his isolation. Temptation whispered, one dose, numbness eternal. He smashed it underfoot, glass shards glittering like frost. No voids filled by chemistry. Crowe profited on despair. Blackwood weaponized grief. But redemption? He glanced at Thorne, her severe lines yielding to quiet steel. She chose whistleblower over complicity. Watson gripped his shoulder. Steady, old chap. The trial exposes all. Lestrade signaled constables to crate the serum. Burn it at yard. A rumble shook the chamber, tide rising, water gurgling through grates. Thorne's lantern sputtered. We must go, now. They retreated, Crowe smirking even as water lapped ankles. The song survives, Holmes. Your reason's just another cage. Surfacing into mortuary chill, lungs burning, Holmes leaned on Watson. The abyss receded, but cracks remained. Blackwood's trial at Old Bailey tomorrow, public spectacle, press frenzy. Yet whispers from constables nagged. 2 more patients vanished from the Marias en route to cells, not drowned in Thames, but gone as if song spirited them. Thorne lingered, bandaging a constable's cut hand. Mr. Holmes. Thank you. For seeing truth amid the fog. He nodded, deerstalker shadowing eyes. Truth demands it, Miss Thorne, though lately it asks more. Watson eyed him curiously as they emerged to gaslit streets, blizzard easing to flurries. Baker Street beckoned, hearth fire and pipe tobacco. But Holmes's mind raced. Blackwood's accomplices, serum smuggled out? The carol's fragment hummed fainter but insistent, pulling toward one final unraveling. That night, in Tune 21B's warm glow, Holmes pored over journals by firelight, Watson dozing in armchair. A knock shattered quiet. Lestrade, face ashen. Bad news. Blackwood escaped the Maria, constable raving hymns, vanished into fog. And Thorne, she's gone missing from her quarters. Left a note. The song calls me home. Holmes surged up, capes swirling. The vice tightened anew. Not restoration, relapse. The Thames tunnels hid more than serum. Blackwood's final verse beckoned from Whitechapel's derelict warehouse, old music hall haunt. Dawn would find them there, reason's blade against melody's tide, Thorne's fate the stake. But as clock struck midnight, a distant carol drifted on wind, not 47, but swelling, as if London itself stirred. Holmes loaded his revolver, the weight familiar yet heavier with unnamed dread. The descent beckoned once more. Dawn broke grey and grudging over Whitechapel, the kind of light that seeped through fog like diluted ink, turning cobblestones slick and treacherous. Holmes led the way, his Inverness cape heavy with overnight frost, revolver tucked cold against his ribs. Watson trudged beside him, breath fogging in sharp bursts, his service revolver drawn and steady despite the limp from old Afghan wounds, flaring in the chill. Lestrade followed close, lantern swinging, his wiry frame tense under the greatcoat, muttering about overtime, and yard brass breathing down his neck. The derelict warehouse loomed at the end of Ratcliffe Highway, once a music hall called the Crimson Lantern, now a rotting husk where Blackwood had performed in his vaudeville days. Boards creaked underfoot as they approached, splintered doors hanging ajar like broken jaws. The air reeked of damp rot and stale gin, undercut by something sweeter. Opium residue, perhaps, or the phantom honey of that cursed carol. Holmes paused at the threshold, hawk-nosed profile sharp against the gloom, listening. From within came a low hum, not the full swell of 47 voices, but a solitary thread weaving through the silence like smoke. Watson glanced at him, moustache twitching with concern. "You all right, Holmes? You've been quiet since Baker Street, quieter than usual even for you." Holmes's eyes, shadowed under the deerstalker, flicked to his friend. "Quietude is the mind's forge, Watson. Hammers out distractions. But this melody persists, gnawing at the edges of reason." Lestrade spat into the snow-melt gutter. "Melody be damned. Blackwood's a killer, escaped custody, and Thorne's note screams accomplice. We go in hard, lads, no poetry." They pushed inside, lantern beams slicing the dark. The vast hall stretched empty, stage warped and sagging, orchestra pit filled with debris, shattered bottles, rags stiff with frost. Footprints marred the dust, fresh, leading toward a trapdoor behind the proscenium. The hum grew clearer, a woman's voice now, fragile yet fervent. "God rest ye merry gentlemen. Let nothing you dismay. Thorne." Holmes signalled silence, descending first into the undercroft, boots silent on rickety stairs. The space below was a warren of forgotten dressing rooms, walls papered in faded playbills starring Elias Blackwood as the Devil's Fiddler. Candlelight flickered from the farthest chamber, casting long shadows that danced like penitents. They crept closer, hearts pounding in unison with the chant. There she knelt, Nurse Amelia Thorne, auburn hair unpinned and wild, pale face wrapped in the glow of a single taper. Before her stood Blackwood, no longer the wild-haired inmate but transformed, clean-shaven, clad in a pilfered tailcoat, eyes burning with manic clarity. Vials of serum glinted on a makeshift altar of crates, the green liquid swirling lazily. Two other figures huddled in corners, gaunt men, former patients, their lips moving in syncopated hymn. Thorne looked up as the light hit her, eyes widening not in fear but recognition. "Mr. Holmes, you've come. The song led you. It leads us all home." Blackwood turned slowly, a smile splitting his face like a wound reopening. "Ah, the great detective. And his Boswell. Lestrade, ever the hound. Predicted you'd track the echo, but too late. The chorus swells." Holmes stepped forward, voice level as glacial ice. "Your theatrics end here, Blackwood. The serum's a crude hallucinogen derived from ergot and belladonna, amplified by suggestion. Bedlam's patients didn't sing forever. They convulsed in agony, voices raw till hearts gave out. You orchestrated it for revenge against Crowe, framing the asylum's abuses as supernatural judgment." Blackwood laughed. "A rich baritone honed by stages. Supernatural, no, Holmes, spiritual. Crowe locked me away for exposing his lobotomies, his ice-pick cures. I gave them the serum, taught the carol as anchor. 47 souls, united in song against the void. They didn't die, they transcended. And now, with Thorne." She rose, hand extended toward a fresh vial. "He showed me, Mr. Holmes. The pain lifts. No more workhouse ghosts, no more patient screams in my dreams. The song fills it all." Watson's grip tightened on his revolver. "Amelia, listen. He's poisoned you. Whatever he gave you last night, fight it. You're stronger than this madness." Lestrade lunged, but Blackwood was swift, hurling a crate that splintered against the wall, vials shattering in a hiss of emerald vapor. Coughs racked the air, eyes watering. Thorne swayed, murmuring the refrain, while the two patients surged forward, feral in their devotion, grappling Lestrade to the ground. Holmes dodged a swinging fist, revolver barking once, into the ceiling, a warning shot echoing like thunder. "Enough. Blackwood, your revenge consumed innocence. Thorne was your pawn, not convert." Blackwood circled, voice dropping to a whisper that carried unnaturally. "Pawn," she chose, as I chose after Bedlam broke me. Music was my god, Holmes. Your reason, a jealous rival. The serum merely unveiled faith's fury. Join us, or drown in silence. The vapor thickened, Holmes's vision blurring at edges, the carol burrowing deeper, stirring unbidden memories, his own 7% solution. Nights in opium dens chasing oblivion, the hollowness reason couldn't fill. Vulnerability cracked his facade, a hesitation, revolver dipping a fraction. Watson saw it, shoved Thorne aside gently, tackling Blackwood. They rolled in the dust, fists flying, Watson's army training prevailing as he pinned the performer. Lestrade cuffed the patients, hacking through the fumes, while Thorne crumpled, tears carving tracks in her grime-streaked cheeks. "It's beautiful but wrong. Help me, please." Holmes knelt beside her, injecting a syringe from his pocket, Crowe's antidote, procured earlier. The hum faded from her lips, replaced by sobs. Blackwood sneered up at Watson. "You cage a prophet, Doctor. The song escapes walls." Dragged into daylight, Blackwood and his followers secured for Old Bailey, Thorne wrapped in Watson's coat, shivering but lucid. Lestrade wiped bloodied knuckles. "Nasty business. Press'll eat it up. Holmes cracks Bedlam cult." But Holmes lingered outside the warehouse, staring at the Thames beyond, fog lifting to reveal barges laden with Christmas holly. Watson clapped his shoulder. "You wavered back there. The song. That got to you." Holmes lit a pipe, smoke curling like a departing spirit. "A reminder, Watson. Reason illuminates, but shadows persist. Even I harbor voids, no deduction fills." Thorne approached, voice steadier. "Thank you for pulling me back." Blackwood spoke, truth twisted. "Pain seeks escape, but not that way." He nodded, eyes distant. "Redemption demands clarity, Miss Thorne. Yours begins now." As they parted for Scotland Yard wagons, a constable approached, hat in hand. "Sirs." Another vanishing. Not Blackwood's lot. A street preacher in Spitalfields, mid-carol, gone like mist. Left his Bible open to Revelations. Holmes's pipe paused midway. The vice twists once more. Not ended. Evolved. Baker Street could wait. The true conductor remained at large, melody mocking from the city's frozen heart. The hansom cab rattled through the thickening fog of Spitalfields, its wheels crunching over frost-rimed cobbles slick with melting snow. Holmes sat rigid, pipe clenched between teeth, the acrid tobacco smoke mingling with the stench of rotting vegetables from the market stalls shuttered against the night. Watson beside him nursed a bruised knuckle, his breath fogging the grimy window as he glanced at his friend. Lestrade hunched opposite, collar turned up, muttering about overtime and Yuletide miracles gone sour. Nurse Thorne, bundled in Watson's spare greatcoat, stared blankly at the passing gas lamps, their yellow halos flickering like dying candles. "That Bible page," Holmes said finally, voice cutting the chill like a scalpel. "Revelations, chapter 14. The Lamb's marriage supper, voices in heaven like many waters. Blackwood's script, but not his hand. Someone orchestrates deeper harmonies." Lestrade grunted, rubbing his jaw where Blackwood's ring had split skin. "Preacher named Silas Wren. Found his barrow overturned in an alley off Brick Lane, coat folded neat as a shroud, Bible splayed open. No blood, no struggle, just gone." Mid-verse, "And they sing the song of Moses and the Lamb." Thorne stirred, her voice a whisper raw from antidote and tears. Wren came to Bedlam last Advent, begged to pray with the singers. Crowe turned him away, said it stirred mania. But Wren slipped in anyway, through the kitchens. I saw him with Elias. Blackwood. They whispered of release. The cab lurched to a halt before a narrow archway, the alley beyond swallowed by shadow. Constables milled with lanterns, their faces gaunt under peaked helmets. A sergeant tipped his hat. "This way, Mr. Holmes." "Spotless, save the book." Holmes alighted first, boots sinking into slush. He knelt by the barrow, fingers tracing the open page, the ink fresh, margins crammed with annotations in a spidery script, not printed, scribed tonight. He inhaled deeply, detecting faint traces beneath the market rot. Myrrh, frankincense, and something sweeter, like altar beeswax. Watson shivered, not from cold. Echoes the warehouse, doesn't it? The folding clothes, the hush after song. "Precisely," Holmes murmured, rising, but elevated. Wren fancied himself John the Baptist, heralding apocalypse through carol. Blackwood was disciple, not apostle. The true voice eludes us still. Lestrade pocketed the Bible. Back to Bedlam, then? Crowe's sweating like a pig since the arrests. Might crack. Thorne's eyes sharpened. Crowe knew more than experiments. Wren visited his office too. Private consultations. Said it was for Wren's own melancholy. Holmes's gaze pierced her. You observed? Once. Door ajar. Crowe handed him a vial. Clear liquid, like the singer's draught. Wren called it manna. Drank deep, sang a line from Handel's Messiah. Then silence. The group pressed into the alley, Holmes leading, his lantern casting elongated shadows that danced like spectral choristers. Wren's coat lay pristine, buttons glinting as if laid for inspection. Holmes lifted it, fabric heavy with night's damp. Inside pocket, a crumpled flyer for Crowe's public lecture next evening at the Royal Society. The Therapeutics of Music in Melancholia. A red herring or breadcrumb. Holmes folded the coat precisely. Watson, hail a cab for Moorfields. Crowe awaits revelation. The ride back blurred into a monochrome haze, snowflakes stinging like accusations. Thorne leaned against Watson, her breath steadying. Gratitude warring with shame in her chest. She danced on the edge, Blackwood's melody promising oblivion from years of workhouse scars and lost loves. Now clarity burned, sharp, unforgiving. You saved me twice, Doctor, she said softly. First from myself, then the song. Watson squeezed her hand gently. Friendship does that. Holmes needs saving too, more than he admits. Holmes, deaf to sentiment, sketched furiously in his notebook by lantern light, timelines, reagents, song fragments. Cocaine whispers tugged at him, the syringe in his vest pocket a siren's call amid fatigue. Not tonight. Reason first. Bethlem loomed as they arrived, its Gothic spires clawing the starry vault. Christmas lanterns mocking from barred windows. The gates creaked open under Lestrade's warrant, guards averting eyes from the man who'd unmasked their cult. Inside, corridors echoed emptier, the hum silenced since the warehouse rout, yet the air hummed with residual fervour, faint like a distant organ. Crowe's office door stood ajar, lamplight spilling gold. They burst in without knock. The superintendent started from his desk, decanter midway to glass, face florid above starched collar. Holmes, what fresh hell Blackwood secured? Wren, Holmes interrupted, slamming the flyer down. Your protégé. Manna from your vials. The vanishings precede your lectures, coincide with your therapeutics. Crowe sank into his chair, mutton chops quivering. Coincidence. Wren sought balm for visions, biblical delusions. I prescribed harmless tonic. Ether, suggestion. Music heals, gentlemen. Bedlam proves it. Thorne stepped forward, voice steel. You peddled poison. Wren sang your praises in that alley, then evaporated like the others. Lestrade loomed. Scotland Yard takes interest in suppliers. Crowe laughed, brittle. Proof? Wren was zealot, foretold end times via carol. I cured him, temporarily. Holmes circled the desk, eyes alighting on a locked cabinet. Key gleams in your fob. Open it. Reluctantly, Crowe complied. Shelves gleamed with vials labelled in code, Manna I7. Beside them, a leather journal, spine cracked. Holmes seized it, flipping pages. Recipes, cocaine base, ether distillate, hallucinogens from Indies. Doses escalating with melody notation, carols transposed to induce trance. And here, Wren as test subject 0. Patient achieves ecstatic dissolution, claims transfiguration. Dissolution, Watson echoed, paling. Not metaphor. The folding clothes. Crowe mopped sweat. Experimental, to free minds from fleshly chains. Wren volunteered, saw it as rapture. Blackwood overheard, rallied patience. I contained it. Thorne snatched a vial, smashing it on flagstones. Contained. 47 souls, Doctor. You played God with broken lives. Holmes pocketed the journal. Your ambition births apocalypse. Wren's not contained, he propagates. Spitalfields tonight, where next? Your lecture tomorrow. Crowe's defiance crumbled, eyes darting to window, where snow veiled the Thames. Perhaps. I glimpsed him yesterday, in chapel alone, sang of new heavens, implored me to join. Silence gripped the room, broken only by distant carolers on Moor Lane, away in a manger faint and pure. Holmes felt the pull anew, not drug but void, reason's limits exposed, faith's shadow encroaching. His hand brushed the syringe pocket, temptation's weight. Watson noted the flicker. "John," he said quietly. "Steady." Crowe whispered. "He spoke of conductor unbound. Me? No. Higher. The Lamb's choir swells eternal." Lestrade cuffed him swiftly. "You're done preaching, Doc. Yard'll sort your choir." As constables dragged Crowe away, protesting innocence, Holmes lingered, journal open to a final entry. Revelation complete. Song transcends. Join or perish. Thorne touched Holmes's arm. "It's not madness, Mr. Holmes, it's hunger. For meaning beyond chains." He met her gaze, hawk nose shadowed. "Perhaps. But hunger devours without discernment." Outside, blizzard renewed, whipping cloaks. Watson checked his watch. Dawn neared. "Baker Street?" "No," Holmes said, striding into whiteout. "Royal Society tomorrow. Wren's stage. But tonight, chapels. The preacher haunts sanctuaries." They plunged into storm, lanterns bobbing like will-o'-the-wisps. Far off, a lone voice rose from fog-shrouded St. Botolph's. "Hark the herald angels sing." Holmes froze. Not echo, live fervent. The vice tightened, city's heart pulsing with forbidden hymn. Yet as snow cloaked them, a fragile warmth stirred in Holmes's chest. Thorne's redemption, Crowe's fall, Wren's ghost. Shadows yielded to pursuit, reason allying with something unnameable. The song called, but clarity answered. Deeper into Whitechapel they pressed, the true verse unfolding in blood and frost. But waiting in the chapel's nave, a figure knelt, not vanished, but waiting. Eyes gleamed with fanatic light, Bible clutched like a weapon. Wren lived, and his revelation promised no mercy. Snow swirled like spectral veils through the arched doorway of St. Botolph's chapel, the ancient stones of Whitechapel groaning under the blizzard's assault. Holmes pushed forward, his Inverness cape crusted with ice, breath fogging the air in sharp bursts. Watson followed close, revolver half drawn, while Nurse Thorne clutched her lantern, its flame dancing wildly. Lestrade brought up the rear, muttering curses against the wind that carried that haunting melody. Hark the herald angels sing, now swelling from within. Not faint echo, but a chorus that clawed at the mind. They crossed the threshold into the nave, where candlelight flickered from iron sconces, casting elongated shadows across weathered pews and a cracked stone floor slick with meltwater. The air hung heavy with incense and damp rot, the scent of forgotten sacraments mingling with the metallic tang of fear. Kneeling before the altar, silhouetted against a stained-glass nativity fractured by frost, stood the figure. Not ghost, but flesh, Reverend Josiah Wren, gaunt and wild-eyed, his clerical robes tattered, Bible gripped in skeletal hands. He turned slowly, lips moving in silent prayer, face etched with a serenity that bordered on madness. Holmes halted, pipe clenched unlit between teeth, hawk-like gaze dissecting the man. Wren presumed vanished these 3 weeks, architect of Bedlam's horrors. The preacher's eyes, fever-bright, locked onto them, and the singing ceased abruptly, leaving only the howl outside. "You come at last, Mr. Holmes," Wren rasped, voice a velvet rasp honed by pulpits, the detective who chains the divine in logic's fetters. "Sit. The revelation awaits." Watson tensed, glancing at Thorne, whose face paled further in the gloom. Lestrade stepped forward, cuffs glinting. "Reverend Wren, you're under arrest for conspiracy in the Ward's massacre. 47 souls, singing to their end." Wren laughed softly, a sound like dry leaves skittering over graves. "Massacre?" "No, detective, ascension. They sang not in torment but triumph, the eternal carol unbound by flesh's frailty." Holmes circled slowly, boots echoing on stone, mind racing through threads. The patient's hypnotic chants on Christmas Eve, throats raw yet voices unending. Crowe's hidden experiments with laudanum-laced hymns, Blackwood's ravings of a conductor beyond death. Seeds planted in Bedlam's cells now bloomed here, in this frozen sanctum. Yet something personal stirred, a crack in his armored reason. Widened by the void left by Moriarty's shadow, the cocaine's whisper silenced but not slain. "Explain, Reverend," Holmes demanded, voice steel over silk. "Your flock ingested what? Belladonna, ergot, and Blackwood orchestrated from his padded cage." Wren rose, unfolding like a resurrection, towering despite frailty. "Blackwood was my herald, fallen star of the music halls, crushed by melancholia's weight. I freed him in song. The choir, 47 voices, pure as Bethlehem's host, chose transcendence. Crowe provided the elixir. Thorne turned blind eyes." Thorne gasped, lantern trembling. "Lies. I smuggled letters, yes, but for mercy, not murder. You preyed on their despair, promising heaven in a vial." Wren's gaze softened on her, almost paternal. "Dear Amelia, orphan of the workhouse, seeking family in the afflicted, you glimpsed truth in Elias Blackwood's eyes, love amid lunacy. Join us now. The song calls you home." She recoiled, auburn strands escaping her pins, tears carving paths through grime. Holmes noted the flush, the hidden ache, her arc from protector to whistleblower born of that forbidden affection, now weaponized against her. "Enough sermonizing," Lestrade growled, advancing, hands behind back. But Wren raised the Bible, parting its pages to reveal not scripture, but a sheaf of yellowed sheets, scores of music, annotated in frantic script. "Hark," he intoned, and began to sing, low and mesmerizing, "Glory to the newborn king." The notes wormed into Holmes's skull, evoking Bedlam's ward, patience swaying. Eyes glazed in rapture, carols looping as convulsions claimed them. Not poison alone, but suggestion, a mass delusion amplified by Crowe's psychiatric gas, Wren's charisma. Yet as the melody swelled, Holmes felt it pull, stirring the emptiness where faith might root. His hand twitched toward the syringe in his pocket, old crutch against the abyss. Reason faltered. What if Wren touched something real? Watson lunged, tackling Wren to the altar steps. The Bible scattered, pages fluttering like dying moths. Lestrade pounced, wrenching Wren's arms, but the preacher's laughter bubbled free. "Too late, brothers. The conductor unbound leads now. Blackwood lives in the song. Listen." From the vestry shadows, a figure emerged, Elias Blackwood. Wild-haired and robed in stolen vestments, eyes vacant yet fervent. How? Crowe had sworn him straitjacketed, sedated. Blackwood's lips parted, joining Wren's refrain. "Peace on earth." Thorne screamed, staggering back. "Elias, no!" Holmes's mind whirred. Escape through sewers, perhaps. Wren's network of acolytes in the underclass. Blackwood lunged not at them, but toward Thorne, hands outstretched in embrace or strangulation. Watson fired a warning shot, splintering a pew, the crack shattering the hymn. Pandemonium erupted. Wren twisted free, hurling a censer that clanged against Lestrade's skull, drawing blood. Blackwood seized Thorne, dragging her toward the altar, murmuring of eternal duet. Holmes vaulted a pew, tackling Blackwood, fists connecting with jaw in a blur of calculated fury. The performer's charisma cracked under knuckles, body slumping. Watson hauled Thorne free, her sobs raw against his shoulder. Lestrade, dazed, cuffed Wren anew as constables burst in, summoned by the shot. But Wren's eyes burned into Holmes. "You feel it, detective. The void reason cannot fill. Grace awaits, not in deduction, but surrender." Panting, Holmes straightened, bloodied knuckles throbbing, the chapel's chill seeping into bones. Grace? A pretty veil for fanaticism. Yet as Blackwood was bound, muttering verses, Holmes glimpsed the man's terror masked as zeal, another soul at rock bottom, grasping for light in darkness. Outside, dawn bled grey through clouds, blizzard easing to flurries. They emerged into Whitechapel streets, prisoners flanked by yardmen. Watson clapped Holmes's shoulder. "Baker Street at last? Rest?" Holmes shook his head, eyes scanning fog-shrouded alleys. "No. The Royal Society lecture. Wren's patron, Lord Ashford, promised revelations there. And Thorne." She met his gaze, resolute amid exhaustion. "I'll testify, for the dead. For Elias, even." Lestrade grunted approval, mopping his brow. "Good work. Holmes, case near closed." But as they parted for carriages, a distant swell rose, not carols but whispers from tenement windows, faint harmonies threading the morning. Holmes froze, pulse quickening. Echoes or new choir forming? The vice tightened once more, Wren's revelation incomplete. Deeper shadows lingered in Mayfair's halls, where gentlemen cloaked ancient rites in science. Holmes strode on, reason fortified yet humbled, the unnameable ally growing within. The final verse beckoned, promising not just truth, but transformation. In the hansom toward the Thames, Thorne leaned close to Watson. "He fights demons he won't name, John, the cocaine, and worse. Moriarty broke more than cases." Watson nodded, moustache twitching. "We've all our bedlams inside, but together—" Holmes' pipe finally lit, exhaled smoke into the dawn, the flavor bitter with unresolved hunger. The song persisted, a siren's call to faith's precipice. At the Royal Society, answers or the abyss. Yet as wheels rattled over cobbles, a child's voice pierced the mist from a nearby orphanage. "Silent night, holy night." Holmes's chest tightened, not with dread, but fragile hope. The fall from reason led here to restoration's edge. Deeper mysteries awaited in Wren's coded scores, hinting at a conductor unbound, not man, but force eternal. And Holmes, gaunt sentinel of logic, teetered on surrender's brink. The carriage jolted to a halt before the grand facade of the Royal Society in Burlington House, its stone arches looming like silent judges under the pallid December sky. Snowflakes danced lazily now, the blizzard's fury spent, but the air bit with unrelenting chill, carrying the faint, acrid tang of coal fires from Mayfair's hearths. Holmes stepped down first, his Inverness cape dusted white, hawk-like eyes narrowing at the gas lamps flickering to life along Piccadilly. The lecture hall awaited within, where Lord Ashford, patron to the enigmatic composer Theodore Wren, would unveil papers long shrouded in secrecy. Wren's scores, those haunting choral manuscripts recovered from Blackwood's cell, held the key. Holmes sensed it in his bones, a vibration deeper than reason's cold calculus. Watson followed, rubbing gloved hands for warmth, his moustache rhymed with frost. "Steady on, Holmes. You've not slept in days. Lestrade's men guard the exits. Thorne's testimony seals Crowe tomorrow. Let Ashford spin his theories. Then home to Baker Street, a hot brandy." Holmes barely heard, his mind a whirlwind of fractured melodies. The orphanage child's voice lingered, silent night weaving through his thoughts like smoke from his unlit pipe. No mere hallucination from cocaine's ebb. The harmonies pursued him from Bedlam's ward to Whitechapel's fog, a persistent echo defying silence. Inside, his demon stirred, not Moriarty's ghost, but something vaster, an unnameable pull toward the precipice of belief. He had dismantled empires of crime with logic's scalpel, yet this choir of 47 souls, singing carols into eternity, mocked his fortress. They entered the vestibule, marble floors echoing underfoot, the air thick with polished wood and the murmur of London's intelligentsia, bearded professors in tailcoats, whispering of phrenology and ether waves. Nurse Thorne trailed discreetly, her auburn hair escaping its pins, face pale but set with quiet fire. She had insisted on coming, her whistleblower's resolve forged in Bedlam's shadows. Elias Blackwood's wild eyes haunted her still, his tales of Wren's celestial conductor, blurring madness and truth. Lord Ashford awaited on the lecture dais, a silver-haired aristocrat in his 60s, ramrod posture belying rheumatism-ravaged hands. "Distinguished company, Mr. Holmes," he intoned as they took front-row seats, voice resonant like a vestry organ. "Wren's legacy, genius or delusion? Tonight we discern." The hall dimmed, lanterns guttering low, casting elongated shadows across folios of yellowed sheet music projected via magic lantern. Ashford's voice rose, dissecting Wren's opus. Notes embedded with ciphers, harmonies mimicking brainwaves from Crowe's electrotherapeutics. The patients, he claimed, dosed with experimental elixirs, laudanum laced with mescaline derivatives, had entered a trance state, lungs sustained by hysteria's grip. Carols as mantra, locking them in rapture till exhaustion claimed them one by one. Holmes leaned forward, gaunt cheeks hollowing. "Simplistic," he murmured to Watson. "Wren's codes reference ancient liturgies, Byzantine chants, not asylum pharmacology. Look, the rests align with solfege intervals evoking divine recursion." Ashford paused, mutton chops twitching as eyes met Holmes's. Perceptive detective, but Wren dabbled in the occult. His patron eye funded it discreetly. To harness the mind's symphony. Salvation for melancholics. Thorne gasped softly beside Watson, her hand clutching the armrest. That was Blackwood's ravings. Wren summoned choirs from beyond, binding souls in song. The slide shifted, a spectral image of Bedlam's ward, blurred figures mid-carol, mouths agape in perpetual hymn. Gasps rippled through the audience. Ashford pressed on. 47 voices, unified not by madness but resonance. Crowe's error was dosage, Wren's vision, immortality through melody. Holmes's pulse thundered, reason fracturing under the weight. He saw it now, the seeds planted in Blackwood's mutterings, Crowe's ledgers, the warehouse relics. Not science, not superstition, but a bridge, Wren's music as conduit, channeling something eternal, amplifying the patient's final pleas into unending echo. Moriarty had scoffed at such faith. Holmes had armored himself against it. Yet here, in this hallowed hall, the vice squeezed his chest. Not dread, but awe's fragile dawn. Interrupting the applause, Holmes rose, voice cutting like a violin bow. "Lord Ashford, your candor unmasks complicity. Wren's rites weren't experiment, they were invocation. The choir persists because you and Crowe silenced it prematurely, electrics to mimic transcendence, hiding the true conductor." Ashford paled, fingers drumming the podium. "Libel, sir, proof." Thorne stood then, voice steady amid murmurs. "I have it, Blackwood's hidden score, smuggled from his cell. It names you, my lord, as Wren's acolyte. The patients sang of release, not torment. You feared exposure. Chaos erupted, professors clamoring, Lestrade bursting from the wings with constables. Ashford bolted for a side door. But Holmes was faster, long strides closing the gap, cape swirling. The aristocrat stumbled into a service corridor, gaslight sputtering, walls lined with forgotten arcana, alchemical tomes, a phonograph etched with choral grooves. "You meddle in abyssal realms," Holmes snarled, pinning Ashford against oak paneling. Wren tapped the infinite, faith's frequency. "Admit it." Ashford wheezed, eyes wild. "Faith, delusion's cloak." Wren heard angels. "We replicated it for progress. The 47. Collateral for eternity's echo." Watson's lantern beam caught a concealed panel swinging open. Beyond, a chamber pulsing with low hum, wax cylinders spinning on automated players, replaying the ward's final carols amplified to haunt London's ether. Thorne recoiled, crossing herself instinctively. "Holy Mother!" Holmes froze, the melody flooding his veins. "God rest ye merry gentlemen," pure insistent, wrapping his hungered soul. Cocaine's void yawned, but this filled it, not numbness, but light piercing his rational night. Moriarty's shadow receded. Vulnerability cracked his armor. He wasn't detective alone, but man, teetering toward Grace's embrace. Lestrade cuffed Ashford, grunting satisfaction. "Ends here, gents. Full conspiracy. Crowe, Blackwood, this lot." As constables dismantled the apparatus, silencing the ghostly playback, Holmes stepped into the alcove's gloom, alone for a breath. Pipe trembling in hand, he struck a match, flame dancing on his hawk-nosed profile. The smoke curled upward, bitter sacrament. Reason had led him to Bedlam's brink. Now, the song beckoned beyond, to restoration's fragile chord. Watson found him there, concern etching his loyal face. "Old chap, you've unmasked them all. But you." That look, like Afghanistan's sands shifting underfoot. Holmes exhaled slowly, eyes distant on the dying lantern. "John, I've chased phantoms, built cathedrals of deduction, Yet this choir, it sings of what logic denies. Hope, perhaps, or surrender. Thorne approached, exhaustion softening her severity. For the dead it's justice, for us maybe healing. Outside, flurries renewed, blanketing Mayfair in hush. Baker Street called, but one shadow loomed. Blackwood transferred to Newgate, his final testimony pending. Maniac or martyr, and Wren's ultimate score, rumoured lost in the Thames warehouse fire, held verses yet unsung. Holmes straightened, the unnameable ally stirring stronger, a quiet resolve blooming amid the ache. The fall from pure reason led here to faith's testing fire. But as they emerged into twilight, a new harmony swelled from a distant chapel steeple. "O come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant." His chest lightened, the vice loosening at last. Yet, in the carriage rattling eastward, our telegram boy darted through traffic, thrusting a sodden envelope at Lestrade. Urgent, from Crowe, escaped Pentonville under false name. Rendezvous at the derelict East End warehouse, midnight. One last secret, the true conductor revealed. Holmes's eyes sharpened, pipe forgotten. The restoration dangled, but temptation's claw extended anew. Midnight beckoned, abyss or apotheosis. The carriage wheels clattered over uneven cobbles, slicing through the thickening fog of the East End like a knife through gristle. Holmes sat rigid, his long fingers steepled, the sodden telegram crumpled in his fist. Midnight approached, and with it, the derelict warehouse on the Thames' forsaken bend. Wren's lair, they called it in whispers, a rotting husk, where smugglers once plied opium and forgotten men nursed their madness. The air grew heavier, laced with the brackish reek of the river and the faint, acrid tang of recent fire, as if the blaze that claimed Blackwood's hidden score still smouldered in the bones of the place. Watson shifted beside him, revolver heavy in his coat pocket, his moustache twitching with unease. "Holmes, this reeks of a trap. Crowe's no fool. Escaped Pentonville on a bribed guard's watch, and now this summons. He's cornered, desperate." Lestrade leaned forward from the opposite bench, his wiry frame taut as a bowstring. "Desperate men sing loudest, Doctor, and that choir of his, 47 souls recorded in Bedlam's depths on pilfered wax cylinders. Blackwood's melodies, Crowe's experiments to cure melancholia by etching madness into sound. Ashford funded it for his Mayfair seances, fleecing the gullible with eternal carols from the grave. But Crowe's the conductor, mark my words." Thorne sat quietly in the shadows, her auburn hair loosened by the night's trials, pale face set in grim resolve. Those patients weren't ghosts. They were voices stolen, replayed until the asylum rang with false salvation. Crowe twisted faith into torment, promising redemption through his machine, but delivering only echoes. Holmes said nothing, his hawk-nosed profile etched by the lantern's feeble glow bouncing off passing gas lamps. The unnameable ally stirred within him, that fragile bloom of something beyond deduction, a whisper of grace amid the wreckage. Reason had peeled back Bedlam's layers, the hidden phonographs in the Christmas ward, the patients dosed with laudanum to sing endlessly, their recordings smuggled to Ashford's club for profit. Blackwood, the fallen performer, had orchestrated the resistance, slipping clues in his ravings. Yet victory felt hollow. Crowe alone remained, the architect of it all, and with him, perhaps the final verse. The carriage lurched to a halt before the warehouse, its silhouette looming like a beached leviathan against the snowy Thames. Doors hung crooked on rusted hinges, windows shatty.